Chapter 1812. Aside from the 10,000-year God origin pill and soul recovery pill, there were 4 other pills that Jianqin had never seen before, so he did not know what they were used for. There were over 20 empty bottles as well. From the marks, the bottles had clearly been opened recently, and the pills inside had probably been consumed by Fairy Haiyue. There were many heavenly resources of various kinds. The most eye-catching item was a 3-meter-long golden ginseng. What a huge ginseng! It's the size of a small tree. Moreover, the ginseng is completely golden, as if it's made of gold. You can tell with a single glance that it's extremely valuable. Jianqin could not help but sigh in amazement. He had seen many ginseng on the Tianyuan continent, but he had never seen such a huge ginseng before him. Aside from the golden ginseng, there were even more heavenly resources and medicinal ingredients. They were all things that Jianqin could not name. However, one thing was certain, and that was that none of the heavenly resources were ordinary. Violet scale rock. Master, there's violet scale rock here. At this moment, the sword spirit's voices rang out in Jianqin's head. Violet scale rock? What's that? Jianqin was stunned as he instinctively looked around. Master, violet scale rock is a material for forging weapons. It's already at the 9th grade of the immortal tier. It's one of the materials that Master needs to forge the azulite swords. Master, the violet scale rock is 15 kilometers in front of you, Ziying said to Jianqin. Jianqin immediately extended the senses of his soul. As expected, he discovered a huge rock that was 3 meters wide at the location Ziying had mentioned. The stone was purple in color, and there were strange patterns on it. They looked like scales. This is violet scale rock? Jianqin studied the 3-meter-wide rock as he gently tapped it with his hand out of curiosity. He knew just how tough the rock was from just touching it. Even if he struck it with his full strength, he probably would not be able to leave a mark on it. As expected of a 9th grade immortal grade material, Jianqin exclaimed, Master, there's a profound thunder rock 20 li west of you. It's also a 9th grade immortal grade refining material. That's great. I didn't expect to find 2 refining materials at once. Qing Suo said excitedly. Jianqin immediately found the black thunder rock. The black thunder rock was similar to the purple scale rock. It was a type of or with lightning flashing on its surface. Occasionally, there would even be electric snakes shooting out. At the same time, the lightning that shot out from the rock was extremely aggressive. Even saint emperors would basically die if they came in contact with it. It would be very difficult for them to survive. If I throw this rock on the Tianyuan continent, who would dare to touch it? Jianqin could not help but mutter inside as he looked at the rock. Ziying, Qing Suo, look around more carefully. See if there are any materials here that can be used to forge the twin swords. Jianqin said to the sword spirits. There was a large pile of materials that Jianqin could not identify in the Divine King's space ring. Only the sword spirits knew which ones could be used to forge the swords. Yeah, let's look around more carefully. Qing Suo replied before beginning to search seriously again. However, in the end, they failed to find a 3rd material that could be used to forge the twin swords. There were quite a few materials that could be used to forge the swords, or even a lot of them. However, they did not meet the requirements of quality, so they could only give up. It's a pleasant surprise to find 2 of them. I'll take my time collecting the remaining materials, Jianqin said in satisfaction before stowing the space ring away. Afterward, Jianqin called Mo Ling over. He gave a portion of the cultivation methods and battle skills he had obtained from the Divine King's space ring to Mo Ling, so that the Tianyuan family could pass down their cultivation methods. Once someone made great contributions to the clan, they could obtain the cultivation methods of these cultivation methods through their contributions. Jianqin placed the better ones on a stone table in the Forbidden Grounds, so that the people who had come with him from the Tianyuan continent could choose whatever they wanted once they emerged from seclusion. Afterward, Jianshan warned Mo Ling and Ando Fu about the future development of the Tianyuan family before leaving the two of them to manage the clan. He entered seclusion himself. Jianshan sat in the secret room. Beside him lay the huge golden ginseng he had found in the Divine King's space ring. Not only had he found 50 10,000-year God origin pills in the Divine King's space ring, but he had also found a large number of heavenly resources, including the ginseng. Moreover, these heavenly resources had all been collected by the Divine King. They were all of extremely high quality, incomparable to the heavenly resources he had obtained in the Xianhuang microcosm. As a result, he wanted to try using these heavenly resources and the 50 10,000-year God origin pills to see if he could reach the 11th layer of the chaotic body. The medicinal effects of the golden ginseng might be very violent and powerful, but my chaotic body has already reached the 10th layer, so enduring the medicinal effects is naturally a piece of cake. Jianshan murmured before directly plucking off a strand of the ginseng and shoving it into his mouth. Immediately, droplets of golden liquid flowed out from the corner of his mouth with boundless energy. As the boundless energy radiated from the golden liquid, the entire secret room became abnormally rich in energy. The only flaw was that the energy contained a tremendous amount of energy. It hid an extremely powerful, violent energy. Many natural treasures had a strong and tyrannical medicinal effect. Very few people would consume them directly. Almost all of them were used to refine pills. Through the combination of ingredients, the fierceness of the medicinal effect would be erased, causing the medicinal effect to become mild. Probably only cultivators with bodies as tough as gentians would be able to swallow heavenly resources without any fear. Jianshan wiped the corner of his mouth and swallowed all the liquid. He did not waste a single drop. As the strands entered his stomach, Jianshan's body seemed to explode like a barrel of gunpowder. Violent and vicious energy rampaged through his body, violently attacking Jianshan's flesh, blood, and organs. Originally, Jianshan believed that he could easily endure the violent medicinal effects of the ginseng with the strength of his 10th layer chaotic body. But only now did he suddenly realize that he had underestimated the ginseng. The medicinal effects of the ginseng were extremely violent, something that Jianshan had never seen before. Jianshan's body trembled violently as he frowned. The intense pain caused his face to become rather pale. What violent medicinal effects, Jianshan thought. He gritted his teeth and began to refine the ginseng as hard as he could. It was extremely difficult for Jianshan to refine the medicinal effects of the strand of root. With his abilities, it took him an entire month to refine all the energy in the strand of root. Jianshan did not stop there. He plucked off a second strand of root and tossed it into his mouth without even frowning. Chapter 1813. It took Jianshan a long time to refine the tremendous amount of energy within the golden ginseng. Every time he swallowed a root, he would need to spend quite a long time to wear away the energy and convert it into his chaotic force. After all, the tremendous energy within the golden ginseng was not as gentle as the energy within the violet cloud peaches. He could refine and absorb it almost effortlessly. Cultivation was non-existent. Jianshan completely forgot about the time as he sat in the room. He devoted all of his attention to cultivation. Not far from him lay the 3-meter-long golden ginseng. However, the ginseng was only a meter long now. Jianshan had swallowed all of its roots and refined them into tremendous energy, causing the chaotic Niden in his dantian to slowly expand. Time passed quickly, and 5 years passed in the blink of an eye. The golden ginseng had already vanished from the gloomy room. Jianshan held the last bit of ginseng meat that was only the size of a fist. After sighing emotionally, he shoved the last bit of ginseng meat into his mouth without any hesitation at all. Afterwards, he closed his eyes and began to refine and absorb the energy. As the last bit of ginseng meat entered Jianshan's stomach, the 3-meter-long ginseng was finally eaten by Jianshan after 5 whole years of Jianshan's time. The energy within the golden ginseng has allowed my chaotic Niden to grow from the size of a bean to the size of a pinky. After reaching the 10th layer, the amount of energy I need to continue growing has increased by several times. I wonder if the heavenly resources I obtained from the Divine King Duanmu's space ring and the 50 10,000-year God origin pills will be enough for me to reach the 11th layer, Genshin thought. With his current strength, early overgods were no longer a threat to him. He would not even fear mid-overgods, but he was not the opponent of late overgods. The reason why he could defeat late overgod Master Chanlong before was because Master Chanlong was a formations master. He was most skilled in using formations against opponents. Open battles were not his forte, which was why Genshin was able to achieve a narrow victory against Master Chanlong. Although I've gained a firm foothold in the Dong and province now, there are still a few people who can pose a threat to me in the divine kingdom of Pingtian. For example, Yang Kai, who has reached late overgod, and the commander of the Royal Divine Army, Xiando. I'm not their opponent because my 10th layer chaotic force has only allowed me to become a god. If my chaotic body can take another step forward and reach the 11th layer, my cultivation will directly reach overgod according to what the Sword Spirit said. At that time, will there still be any overgods who can be my opponent? The only people I fear will probably be Divine King experts, Genshin thought. In the past few years, Genshin had gained a precise understanding of the cultivation realms corresponding to the later layers of the chaotic body from the Sword Spirits. The 11th layer of the chaotic body was equivalent to Shen Immortals in the Immortals world, and Shen Immortals were equivalent to overgods in the Saints world. If he reached the 12th layer, he would be equivalent to 9 heavens Shen Immortals in the Immortals world. 9 heavens Shen Immortals were equivalent to Divine King experts in the Saints world. The 12th layer was the peak of the intermediate level of the chaotic body. If he surpassed the 12th layer and reached the 13th layer, he would have reached major achievement of the chaotic body. The chaotic body had a total of 18 layers. The 13th to the 18th layer were all major achievement of the chaotic body. The 13th layer of the chaotic body was equivalent to immortal monarchs in the Immortals world, which was equivalent to infinite primes in the Saints world. Although each layer of the chaotic body would lead to a qualitative leap in strength, the difference between each minor realm of cultivation would also be extremely great once one reached the primordial realm. As a result, once one reached the 13th layer of the chaotic body, the increase in strength would slow down. Below the primordial realm, each layer of the chaotic body would lead to an increase in cultivation or even several cultivation realms. However, after the 13th layer, the 13th, 14th, and 15th layers of the chaotic body were equivalent to infinite primes because the difference between each cultivation realm was extremely great. The last 3 layers of the chaotic primes of the Saints world corresponded to the chaotic primes of the Saints world. However, due to the strength of the chaotic body, the 18th layer of the chaotic body was enough to put up a fight against regular grand primes, even though they were only peak chaotic primes. Beyond the 18th layer was the great perfection of the chaotic body that only existed in legends. Throughout history, no one had ever reached the great perfection of the chaotic body. Even the few people with the innate chaotic body that had appeared in the history of the Immortals world had failed to reach the great perfection of the chaotic body. I need to reach the 11th layer as soon as possible. Genshin secretly gritted his teeth. After absorbing the golden ginseng, he immediately took out the other heavenly resources from the Divine King's space ring and wolfed them down. He had fallen out with the protector of the Earth Spirit sect, Wainer Yen, so no one knew whether Wainer Yen would invite other experts from the Earth Spirit sect. As a result, he always felt pressured. Only by becoming stronger would he be able to gain a foothold. A short decade or so was nothing to the Dong, and province that had existed on the cloud plain for several 100,000 years. Now it had already been 15 years since Genshin entered seclusion. Although Genshin had never appeared in front of the Tianyuan family during those 15 years, the prestige he had left behind in the hearts of the powerful clans in the Dong and province did not decrease at all. The name of the Tianyuan family had completely spread across the entire divine kingdom of Pingtian. Everyone in the kingdom knew that a Tianyuan family had appeared in the Dong and province, suppressing the overgod of the Wainer clan and ruling over the entire provincial city. They had become the ruler of the Dong and province, where even the imperial power could not interfere. As a matter of fact, many people in the neighboring countries had heard about the Tianyuan family in the Dong and province as well. Many people felt respect for them. The Tianyuan family had already become a supreme existence in the Dong and province. As for Mo Ling and Ando Fu, who were responsible for the daily affairs of the clan, basically all the matters of the clan were handled by the two of them due to Genshin's seclusion. As a result, they had become figures of great authority in the Tianyuan family. They were people who could shake up the entire Dong and province with a stomp of their feet. Chapter 1814. As Wainer Yen was also in seclusion, the Wainer clan maintained an extremely low profile in the Dong and province. The two gods of the Wainer clan also waited quietly for Wainer Yen to emerge. As Wainer Yen had suffered a crushing defeat in the battle against the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, the two gods of the Wainer clan did not dare to expand their territory recklessly while Wainer Yen was in seclusion. Clearly, they feared the Tianyuan family. However, even with that being the case, the Wainer clan was still renowned in the Dong and province and the divine kingdom of Pingtian. However, they had been completely eclipsed by the Tianyuan family, which was why very few people paid attention to the Wainer clan in the Dong and province. In the past 15 years, the Tianyuan family's strength rapidly expanded as well. They now possessed 12 gods. Aside from Mo Ling and Ofu and the 4 gods from the Nanyuan clan, 5 other gods had joined the Tianyuan family as elders. As for the final heaven god, she was a woman who hadn't cultivated for long, and her name was Shiyu. Shiyu's talent had always been extremely great. She had only cultivated for a few thousand years. With her talent, becoming a god was only a matter of time, even if she did not need anyone's help. Moreover, it would not take too long. Now that Jianshin had imparted all his comprehension of the laws of the sword to her, the time she needed to become a god was drastically shortened. On this day, 15 years later, Jianshin slowly opened his eyes as he sat in a secret room in the forbidden grounds of the Tianyuan family. With a flip of his hand, he took out a heavenly resource he did not know the name of from his space ring. Jianshin looked at the heavenly resource in his hand calmly. He shook his head gently and sighed. I can't keep consuming them. I've already consumed over a dozen heavenly resources in the years I've been in seclusion. My body has already developed a resistance to them. If I keep consuming these heavenly resources, they'll only be of less and less help to me. However, I still have 5 droplets of liquid lime. The liquid lime has the miraculous effect of purging the poison in the body and reducing the resistance to pills. Jianshin murmured. Immediately, he took out the jade bottle with the liquid lime from his space ring. He opened the lid and poured a droplet of liquid lime into his mouth without any hesitation. Jianshin immediately felt his entire body become cold as soon as the droplet of liquid lime reached his stomach. As the icy cold feeling quickly spread throughout his body, an indescribable sense of comfort spread throughout his body. All the pores on his body opened up at this moment. He also felt the resistance to pills that he had developed from consuming large amounts of heavenly resources slowly vanish as the coldness spread through his body. At that moment, Jianshin felt his soul become extremely clear. Vaguely, the profound laws of the world seemed to become even clearer before his eyes. This miraculous effect was similar to consuming the comprehension tea tree. Not only could the liquid lime purge the poison in the body, but it also possessed some of the effects of the comprehension tea tree as well. However, compared to the comprehension tea tree, the liquid lime's ability to help people comprehend the laws of the world was clearly much weaker. Several hours later, the coldness from the liquid lime finally began to recede slowly. The resistance that had developed in Jianqin's body had finally been completely purged as well. This liquid lime really is good stuff. Jianqin could not help but sigh in amazement. Without any hesitation, he immediately consumed more heavenly resources to increase his strength as much as he could. Time passed silently. Before he knew it, all the heavenly resources in the Divine King's space ring had been consumed by Jianqin. As the heavenly resources were of quite a high grade, they were far more helpful to Jianqin than the small high-grade divine crystal mine that Jianqin had absorbed from the territory of the Liu family. As a result, his chaotic Niden grew larger and larger. Jianqin did not stop because of this. He pulled out 5 more jade bottles from his space ring. To no surprise, they contained 10,000-year God origin pills. A single 10,000-year God origin pill could increase his cultivation by 10,000 years. There were a total of 50 pills, so they could increase his cultivation by 500,000 years. I wonder if these 50 10,000-year God origin pills will be enough for my chaotic body to break through to the 11th layer, Jianqin thought. He opened the bottle and poured out 5 pills in one go before swallowing them. His chaotic body could endure the energy from the God origin pills when he was at the 9th layer. Now that his chaotic body had reached the 10th layer, the energy from the 10,000-year God origin pills posed no threat to him at all. After who knew how long, Jianqin had consumed all 50 10,000-year God origin pills. Jianqin felt helpless as he looked at the fist-sized chaotic Niden in his dantian. All the heavenly resources in the Divine King's space ring and the 50 10,000-year God origin pills were still not enough for his chaotic body to reach the 11th layer. Apart from the 10 blocks of high-grade divine crystal from the Divine King, I only have a few pieces of supreme-grade divine crystal from the Divine King's space ring on me right now. However, I feel like even if I absorb all of them, my chaotic body won't break through successfully, Jianqin thought. The light in his eyes began to flicker as he sat in the secret room. A while later, Jianqin made up his mind. His eyes became determined, and he suddenly stood up. He directly made his way out of the secret room. I never thought that I would have been in seclusion for 50 years already. Jianqin could not help but sigh emotionally as he stood outside and looked at the sky. Mo Ling and O Fu, come see me immediately. Jianqin immediately called for Mo Ling and O Fu after leaving the Forbidden Grounds. Very soon, Mo Ling and O Fu arrived before Jianqin at the same time. Aside from the 2 of them, there were 10 other gods who had come. Greetings to the Patriarch. A total of 12 gods stood before Jianqin politely and bowed towards Jianqin. Jianqin glanced past them and discovered that he had never seen a few of them before. He immediately understood that they were all outsiders who had joined the Tianyuan family. Afterwards, he looked at the white-clothed Shiyu, and he could not help but smile faintly. He said with some relief, "Shiyu, you really haven't disappointed me. You've become a god in such a short amount of time." Chapter 1815. Thank you for your kindness, Patriarch. If it weren't for your assistance, it would have been impossible for me to become a god in such a short amount of time. Shiyu clasped her fist at Jianqin as her eyes flickered. Unknowingly, Jianqin's position in her heart had silently changed. Jianqin treated Shiyu very indifferently. He nodded slightly before looking at Mo Ling and O Fu. He said to the 2 of them, "I'll be leaving for a while. During this time, I'll leave all matters of the clan to the 2 of you. If there's anything important, crush this jade talisman." As he said that, Jianqin passed a jade talisman to Mo Ling. The jade talisman contained a sliver of the power of his soul. As long as it was crushed, he would be able to sense it. "Yes, Patriarch." Mo Ling stowed the jade talisman away carefully. As soon as she heard that Jianqin was about to leave, Shiyu trembled by an undetectable amount. At that moment, she actually felt a sense of loss for some reason. Afterwards, Jianqin gave a few more orders to everyone before directly leaving the Tianyuan family. As for Shangguan Mu and the others, they were all cultivating in the forbidden grounds of the back courtyard. Jianchen did not bring anyone with him, so he left alone this time. The only exception was the 7-colored heaven-devouring beast that remained in the bright moon divine hall, lying on Kaya's coffin quietly like a loyal guard. Sigh, I don't know why Kaya hasn't woken up. However, I have no idea what's going on with Kaya at all. Once I go to the royal capital in the future, I'll have to ask the overgods properly and see if they can find a way to save Kaya, Jianchen thought. He had also carefully examined Kaya's condition countless times. There were clearly no injuries on her body. He had even used a drop of amethyst spirit bamboo juice on her primordial spirit. The sap of the amethyst spiritual bamboo was a divine item for healing injuries to the soul. With Kaya's strength, a single droplet of the sap would be enough to completely heal her even if her soul was severely injured. However, in reality, using the juice of the amethyst spirit bamboo on Kaya was like throwing a stone into the sea. It didn't have the slightest effect. This made Jianchen feel very puzzled. Even the sap of the amethyst spirit bamboo was useless against Kaya. There are only 2 possibilities for this to happen. Firstly, 1 drop of amethyst spirit bamboo juice was far from enough to restore Kaya's primordial spirit. Secondly, Kaya's soul was not injured at all, Jianchen murmured. He naturally believed the second possibility without any hesitation. It was exactly because of this that he was unable to do anything about Kaya's current predicament. Before long, Jianchen arrived before the Divine King's dwelling again. Even though the disturbance caused by God King Duanmu's dwelling had died down several decades ago, the place was still extremely busy. It still attracted many cultivators from far away. As a result, many people would enter and leave the place basically every day. Although the overgods from various places had taken away all the treasures in the Divine King's dwelling several decades ago, there were still many things that tempted deities and gods. This was especially the case for the godhood cultivators who cultivated the way of the sword. They treated this empty cave abode as a supreme treasure. This was because there were sword slashes left behind by the Divine King in there. It was exactly because of these sword slashes that basically all the cultivators who had comprehended the laws of the sword and the laws of space in the surrounding divine kingdoms gathered here. There were quite a few origin realm cultivators among them as well. As a matter of fact, even some of the divine kings who liked using the sword had come over to join in the fun. They hoped to come across a fortuitous encounter that could allow them to soar. As a result, the Divine King's dwelling seemed rather crowded right now. Jianchen erased his presence and entered the Divine King's dwelling as well. As soon as he entered the dwelling, he heard a hubbub of noise. There were quite a lot of people outside the Divine King's dwelling, but there were even more people inside. It was extraordinarily busy, like a bustling market. Jianchen made his way to the depths of the Divine King's dwelling with great familiarity. Very soon, he arrived before the dwelling where Duanmu Divine King's disciple cultivated. The place was also packed with people, especially the Sword Comprehension Building. There were even more people there. Basically, all of them stared at the sword slash that God King Duanmu had personally left behind in the building. They stared at it as they tried their best to comprehend it, hoping to benefit from it. Jianchen shook his head gently as he looked at the sword slashes in the building. He could tell with a single glance that the sword slashes had already lost their charm and mysteries. This was because the sword slashes left behind by the Divine King could only be comprehended a limited number of times. Once the limit was reached, the sword slashes would lose all of their charm and become ordinary. It would be very difficult to gain anything from them, no matter how much one studied them. Jianchen did not stay for long. He continued into the depths and arrived before the 3 stone huts very soon. Now, apart from the first stone house that had collapsed, the other 2 stone houses were still standing. From time to time, people would go in and out of them. However, there were still many people outside the stone huts who were here for the first time. They were still hesitating over which hut to enter first. Quick, everyone go to the third stone hut. Someone has successfully broken through to God in the third stone hut again. At this moment, a voice rang out from nearby. With the voice, the cultivators gathered there immediately fell into an uproar. What? Someone has broken through in the third stone hut again. I really envy them. The third stone hut has already given birth to over a dozen gods in the past few years. Everyone, let's go to the third stone hut. The third stone hut is where the divine king passed away. It contains the comprehension of laws left behind by the divine king when he was alive. Now, the comprehension of laws has become very thin, just enough for us to comprehend. If we cultivate in there, our chances of breaking through to God are extremely high. Then what are we hesitating for? Let's go to the third stone hut. We might be able to break through in there as well and become a god. Immediately, the cultivators who are still hesitating outside the stone huts all rushed towards the third stone hut. Jianshin also moved towards the stone hut. However, he did not head towards the third stone hut. Instead, he headed towards the second stone hut. Stepping through the door of the stone hut, Jianshin's vision suddenly opened up. He had already appeared in another world. This was an extremely huge world. The entire world was filled with endless mountains. Extremely steep, sword-shaped mountains rose from the ground, piercing the sky. Many of the mountains were covered with huge sword slashes. This was where the divine King Duanmu had once trained in the sword. As a result, the entire space was filled with invisible sword chi. Even after countless years, it still could not erase its sharpness. Chapter 1816. This place was basically a paradise for godhood cultivators who had comprehended the laws of the sword. To them, the sword scars left behind on the mountain peaks were peerless treasures. Even to Jianshin, who had reached over God with the laws of the sword, this place was still of great help to him. As a matter of fact, countless people had tried various methods in the past few years in an attempt to take away the sword slashes on the mountains for themselves. However, it was a pity that no one had succeeded until now. This was because all the mountains with sword slashes were extremely tough. It was impossible to move them away. Many people gathered in the mountains as well. Many cultivators of various levels of cultivation either sat on the rocks or hovered in the air, comprehending the sword intent within the slashes. However, not all of them had comprehended the laws of the way of the sword. Most of them had comprehended other laws. It was only because the weapons they used were also swords that they hoped to comprehend a new way of using swords from the sword slashes. Or perhaps they wanted to comprehend a second law of their own. Of course, there were countless people who comprehended the laws of the sword, but those who truly benefited were as rare as phoenix feathers or qilin horns. Jianshin glanced around before finding a place casually. He sat down on the ground, and with a flip of his hand, the 2 scrolls on the laws of the sword he had obtained from the Divine King's space ring appeared in his hand. He opened one of them and began to read through it carefully like he was intoxicated. This is where the Divine King Duanmu practiced the sword in the past. There are basically traces of the Divine King's laws of the sword everywhere in this space. Comprehending the laws of the sword Duanmu Divine, King Duanmu, in an environment like this will undoubtedly allow me to achieve twice the results with half the effort. I'll be able to break through to the partial achievement of sword spirit in the shortest amount of time possible, Jianshin thought. He had sensed long ago that his laws of the sword had already reached the peak of the minor achievement of sword spirit. He was only a step away from the partial achievement. The Divine King Duanmu's attainments in the way of the sword were extremely great. He was even half a step away from the primordial realm. The sword principle cultivation experience written by him was of great help to Jianshin. Jianshin's mind was completely immersed in Duanmu's Divine King's writings. After reading these 2 books, Jianshin gained a lot. He felt as if he was suddenly enlightened. There were many things that he did not understand in the past, but now he vaguely found the direction. In fact, Jianqin had even discovered his own misconceptions about the way of the sword from the divine King Duanmu's writings, which had deepened his understanding of the way of the sword. In the blink of an eye, Jianqin had already sat there for 10 years. During these 10 years, his body did not move at all, as if he had completely turned into a stone statue. Even his body was covered in a thick layer of dust. This person has sat there for 10 years. Has he already gained something? Although 10 years isn't a long time, we've even gone through several hundred years of seclusion, let alone 10 years. However, I've never seen anyone sit there for 10 years in a place like this. That's right. To us, these sword scars are perhaps too profound. We are simply unable to comprehend the profoundness within them. Practically all of us would sit there for 2 or 3 years before stopping to properly ponder over it. Or perhaps we would change to another location to continue comprehending it. It is very rare to see someone sit in one location for 10 years. In the past few years, there have been a few gods who have comprehended a sliver of their mysteries. But unfortunately, they couldn't last for too long before vomiting blood and becoming heavily injured. The slashes left behind by the divine King Duanmu are just too profound. If you can't comprehend them, you'll naturally be fine, but once you do, even gods won't be able to endure the backlash of the sword intent. However, since this person can sit there for 10 years, his cultivation must be extremely impressive. In just 10 years, Jianqin had attracted the attention of many people. However, without exception, all of their gazes towards him were filled with surprise and astonishment. There were even a few people who looked at Jianqin with admiration. Cultivating for 10 years was not worth mentioning to everyone present. However, being able to comprehend for 10 years here was no small matter. At this moment, Jianqin, who was covered in a thick layer of dust, finally moved his statue-like body. As he moved, a large amount of dust rolled down from his body. That person has finally woken up. Heavens, he actually didn't vomit blood. Has he really been comprehending the sword intent here in the past 10 years? Look at how he's completely entered a state of selflessness. He must have entered a state of comprehension. Who is this person? As soon as Jianqin woke up, he immediately attracted the attention of many people. Many gazes from all over the mountains gathered on him at that moment. However, no one recognized Jianqin, although they all knew about the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan in the Dong and province. There were only a handful of people who had actually seen him. Jianqin did not seem to notice the gazes from the surroundings at all. He slowly put the 2 scrolls away. During the past 10 years, he had comprehended the 2 scrolls together with the sword slashes on the mountains. He had made extremely great progress. Now he felt like he was only a tiny step away from reaching the partial achievement of sword spirit. At this moment, another group of people walked in from the outside. There were a total of 3 of them, 2 men and 1 woman. Among them, the woman looked to be in her 20s. Her appearance could be considered stunning, but her clothes were very revealing. In front of her chest, there was only a ribbon covering her 2 dark red spots. More than half of her body was exposed. Her lower body was also wearing an extremely short skirt that only covered 3 parts of her body. A pair of perfectly round and slender legs were completely exposed in the air. Moreover, the lascivious look in this woman's eyes was sometimes revealed without any concealment, and it was filled with a dense lust and evilness. The 2 other men stood to the left and right of the woman. They were middle-aged as well. However, even with that being the case, a sliver of primitive human desire would flicker through their gazes when they looked at the woman from time to time. However, it just so happened that the 2 of them did not dare to touch the woman at all with their cultivation as gods. Unless they obtained her permission, they did not even dare to touch a single hair on her. Chapter 1817. The young man was only at reciprocity, so he was unable to put up any resistance at all before the woman, who was a deity. He was bound by her effortlessly. Senior, W, what are you doing? The young man panicked. A perverted expression appeared on the scantily clad woman's face as she brought her face close to the young man's face. She stuck out her tongue and lightly licked the young man's cheeks. Her body emitted a fragrance that could arouse the most primitive flames of desire. Her breath smelled like orchids as she said softly, "Little brother, don't be nervous and don't be afraid. Big sister won't hurt you, because I've already taken a fancy to you. Let big sister take good care of you. Let big sister take you to paradise." After saying that, the scantily clad woman waved her hand. Immediately, a temple flew out. It rapidly expanded in midair before crashing heavily onto the ground. The woman grabbed the young man and directly took him into the divine hall, ignoring the young man's resistance. The people who had gathered in the space to comprehend the way of the sword focused their gazes on the scantily clad woman. However, many of their expressions became rather strange very soon. The reason for that was because the shrine that the scantily clad woman had taken out was actually transparent. What was transparent? Even if they stood outside, they could clearly see everything that happened within the divine hall. It was not hidden at all. The lewd light in the eyes of the woman in revealing clothes became more and more intense. Under everyone's gazes, she stripped the young man of all his clothes impatiently before ripping off the clothes on her. She directly pressed the young man onto the ground and sat on him. She was doing something despicable in front of everyone. Senior, please don't. Senior, please spare me." The young man did not show any pleasure at all. Instead, he begged in pain. However, his body had already been trapped. He was unable to move at all. All he could do was stare at the woman on him helplessly. However, his complexion was gradually turning pale. The skin on his body was also gradually losing its luster, becoming yellow and withered. It was as if he had lost all of his vitality. On the other hand, the woman's face glowed. She was brimming with energy as if she had eaten a great tonic. Tui, how shameless! What a shameless person! There were also quite a number of women in this space. When they saw this unsightly scene, their pretty faces turned red as they opened their mouths to curse. "Humph, you're looking to die." The curses of these women immediately caused the two middle-aged men who came in with the scantily clad women to become furious. One of them let out a cold cry, and a huge axe appeared in his hand. He swung the axe at the women. A huge axe blade swept across the sky, bringing with it a monstrous demonic chi that enveloped the few women. Those women's cultivation bases were not even at the heavenly god realm. Facing the attack of a heavenly god, how could they be a match? They were all scared pale. Great-grandfather. At this moment, one of the women called out. An old man sitting on a mountain nearby suddenly opened his eyes. The moment he stood up, a sharp strand of sword chi immediately radiated from him. He wielded his sword and directly sent out a strand of sword chi that collided with the middle-aged man's axe in the air. Boom! With a boom, the middle-aged man's axe immediately collapsed. The sword chi dimmed slightly, but it did not disperse. Instead, it continued towards the middle-aged man with lightning-like speed. A god who has comprehended the laws of the sword. The expression of the middle-aged man holding the giant axe changed. He immediately chopped out a second time and dispersed the remaining power of the sword chi. However, he could not help but take a small step back. Following that, he looked at the old man with eyes filled with fear. At the same time, Jinshin's eyes narrowed. He could not help but study the old man carefully as interest filled his face. My granddaughter is not someone that just anyone can harm. Moreover, you've actually done something so unsightly in front of so many people. You've offended public decency. Today, this old man will properly teach you a lesson. The old man wielded his sword as he radiated with powerful sword intent. He strode through the air and rapidly approached the two middle-aged men. His presence surged. "Humph, we're from the MO family. Sir, do you want to become enemies with our MO family?" The middle-aged man with the axe growled. He was stern. The old man comprehended the laws of the sword. He was extremely powerful. Even if the two of them worked together, they would not be his opponent. The old man halted when he heard the Mo family. His face changed slightly as well. He growled, "The Mo family? Is it the Mo family of the divine kingdom of Qingyang?" The two middle-aged men could not help but brighten up when they saw the old man's reaction. They could tell that the old man feared the Mo family. "That's right. We're the elders of the Mo family of the divine kingdom of Qingyang," the middle-aged man with the axe said proudly. The middle-aged man with the giant axe said proudly. At the same time, he took out an identity token. Fear immediately appeared in the old man's eyes when he saw the medallion that represented the identity of an elder of the Mo family. He snorted coldly and turned around. He arrived before a young woman and protected her behind him. Clearly, he did not dare to provoke the Mo family. "Great-grandfather, that woman is so shameless." The woman hid behind the old man and said furiously, "Enough. Let's not talk about this anymore. The Mo family is a clan of overgods. They're not people we can provoke," the old man said to the woman secretly. His voice was filled with helplessness. After the middle-aged man revealed his identity, some of the people who originally wanted to fight for justice all restrained themselves, and fear appeared in their eyes. Clearly, they did not dare to provoke the Mo family of the divine kingdom of Qingyang. Jianqin sighed gently when he saw this. He slowly stood up and casually pointed at the transparent divine hall. With that, an extremely tiny strand of sword qi immediately shot out with lightning speed, directly shattering the divine hall. Powerful ripples of energy expanded outwards, forcefully separating the woman and young man. The woman was extremely excited, so she could not help but become furious when her plans were suddenly ruined. She immediately called out, "Who is it? Who did this? Are you tired of living? Miss, please conduct yourself with dignity in public. Don't do anything that offends your image," Jianqin said emotionlessly as he stood on the mountain peak. Disgust appeared in his eyes. "How dare you?" The woman did not wear any clothes. She just stood there carelessly as she pointed at Jianqin. Just when she was about to call out, she could not help but become stunned. She stared at Jianqin blankly as he stood on the mountain peak with his arms behind his back. Infatuation filled her face. Chapter 1818. Jianqin frowned. He became slightly impatient. At the same time, everyone's gazes gathered on Jianqin again. It's him, the person who has sat here for 10 years without moving. What is his cultivation? He clearly knows that she's from the Mo family of the divine kingdom of Qingyang, yet he's still bold enough to attack her. He really isn't that simple. However, it seems like he doesn't dare to provoke the Mo family too much. Otherwise, he wouldn't have just destroyed the divine hall without harming the woman. That despicable woman has actually gone to find him. I wonder how he's going to deal with her. Many people wondered inside, guessing at Jianqin's strength and background. However, even more people were paying attention to how Jianqin was going to deal with today. This was because the Mo family of the divine kingdom of Qingyang was an organization with overgods. The woman did not become angered at all when she saw how Jianqin remained silent. Her eyes were filled with affection as she said gently, "Big brother, I fell in love with you at first sight. Are you really going to be so cold? Don't be so insensitive. Show me some affection. I swear that I won't harm you at all. I won't treat you like that little brother. Big brother, I can teach you a cultivation method for balancing yin and yang. We only need to cultivate it once, and our strength will increase drastically. I can promise you that you only need to try it once, and you'll fall deeply in love with it." The woman from the Mo family stood behind Jianqin naked as she spoke to Jianqin's back. Her voice was filled with hope and desire. She was not lying. She was telling the truth because she had truly been deeply attracted by Jianqin's bearing. "Piss off, or don't blame me for what happens to you," Jianqin said coldly. A sliver of heavy killing intent appeared in his eyes. The woman was only a deity. In Jianshin's eyes, she was as weak as an ant. He originally disdained to kill the other party, but the other party's actions had stirred up the killing intent in his heart. Sensing Jianshin's killing intent, the woman from the Mo family perhaps also knew that Jianshin would not fall for her tricks. Her face could not help but darken. She placed her hands on her hips and said coldly, "You want to do this the hard way? No one has ever been able to escape from the men I want. I'll definitely have you today. From today onwards, you'll be my boy toy." With that, the woman looked at the two middle-aged men nearby and said, "Elders, please tie this person up." The two elders of the Mo family hesitated slightly before directly flying towards Jianshin. It looks like there really aren't many good people in the Mo family. Jianshin was emotionless. Suddenly, a weak streak of light appeared with a flash from his finger, pointing towards the forehead of the woman from the Mo family casually. As a mere deity, the woman of the Mo family was unable to put up any resistance at all before an overgod. A bloody hole appeared between her eyebrows, and in the blink of an eye, her soul had been wiped out. She fell straight down. The two elders of the Mo family who were flying over became stunned when they saw the bloody hole on the woman's forehead. Their eyes widened as disbelief filled their faces. It was not just the two of them. Even all the people gathered in the space became filled with disbelief. She was a member of the Mo family, and she seemed to possess quite a high status, yet she had been slain so decisively by Jianshin. Everyone present was deeply shocked by what he had done. "You actually killed the second young miss." The two elders of the Mo family paled. They understood the status of the second young miss in the Mo family very well. She was someone who was deeply doted on by the ancestor of the Mo family. Now that she had died before the two of them, the ancestor would definitely lose his mind. Jianshin looked at the two elders of the Mo family and said coldly, "People of the Mo family, if you want to live a little longer, you better behave yourself in the provincial city. Do you know who you've killed? Our ancestor will never spare you." The two elders no longer dared to charge towards Jianshin. Instead, they called out from afar. They had already guessed that Jianshin definitely had something to rely on since he dared to kill a member of the Mo family fearlessly. "I just happened to have something on your ancestor. Go back and inform your ancestor." "Before long, Jianshin will definitely pay a personal visit," said Jianshin. Although it was a visit, anyone could tell that Jianshin had no intentions of visiting at all. "What? You're Jianshin? Why, you're the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan in the Dong and province." The expressions of the two elders of the Mo family changed drastically when they heard Jianshin's name. They staggered backwards uncontrollably as shock filled their faces. At the same time, the expressions of all the cultivators gathered there changed drastically as well. Their eyes widened as they stared at Jianshin in disbelief. Their hearts churned. "What? He's the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan. Heavens, I've never heard of him before. He's actually the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan in the Dong and province, Jianshin. In the Dong and province, the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianshin, is a great figure who can do as he pleases. I've actually seen the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan." At that moment, everyone's gazes towards Jianshin changed. They were filled with curiosity as well as reverence from the bottom of their hearts. "Run! Run!" The two elders of the Mo family dared not say anything. They glanced at Jianshin in fear before turning around and fleeing. They fled as quickly as they could. They did not even bother with the corpse of the woman from the Mo family. Jianshin did not stop them. He allowed them to flee. Although the ancestor of the Mo family had taken something from him, that was a matter between him and the ancestor of the Mo family. In his opinion, it was pointless to vent his anger on these gods. At this moment, Jianshin looked at the old man and clasped his hands. "May I ask for your name?" The old man immediately felt flattered when he saw Jianshin personally ask about him. He clasped his hands towards Jianchen in a hurry and said, "I am Jianchen, and I come from the Kaiyang province of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Greetings to the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan. Qi Qian, I can see that you have some accomplishments in the laws of the sword. May I ask if you are interested in joining my Tian Yuan family? If you are, I will definitely assist you to break through to over God with everything I have," Jianchen said, extending an olive branch to Qi Qian. This was because he had a vague feeling that Qi Qian's accomplishments in the laws of the sword would be far greater than this. Qi Qian beamed with joy when he heard that. He said excitedly, "Is that true, Patriarch? If I join the Tianyuan family, will the Patriarch really assist me to break through to over God with everything he has?" Chapter 1819. Of course. Since I've made a promise like that, I'll definitely assist you with everything I have as long as your talent isn't too bad, Jianchen swore. Although his laws of the sword had only reached mid-over God right now, he was confident that helping Qi Qian break through to over God would not be very difficult. Qi Qian's current cultivation was only at the middle stage of the heavenly God realm. It would still take some time for him to reach the peak heavenly God realm. With the rate at which his laws of the sword increased, he would have reached the major achievement of sword spirit, the great perfection of sword spirit, or even sword immortal by the time Qi Qian reached peak God. Even if the situation had changed, where his laws of the sword would remain at the partial achievement of sword spirit when Qi Qian became a peak God, he still believed that it would not be too much of a problem for Qi Qian to break through to over God with his full assistance. I should be leaving here very soon. Before I leave, I need to increase the strength of the Tianyuan family a little more. It'll be best if they have an over God personally watch over them. Only then can we ensure that nothing happens to the clan. However, I also need to deal with the matter of the Wainer clan. If we can't coexist peacefully, I can't be blamed. Otherwise, it'll always be a problem, Jianchen thought. The reason why he wanted to rope in Qi Qian this time was because he had a strange feeling that Qi Qian would definitely achieve quite a lot in the future. However, Jianchen was rather confused about where this feeling came from. Even though that was the case, Jianchen believed in his intuition without any hesitation. Secondly, and most importantly, he already considered leaving the Tianyuan family. After all, he was from the Immortals world, so he would have to return to the Immortals world eventually. Although he was not born in the Immortals world, nor did he even know what the Immortals world was like, he was unable to deny his identity as a person from the Immortals world due to his cultivation method, his legacy, and the existence of the twin swords. As a result, he had to find a way to increase the strength of the Tianyuan family before he left. At the very least, he had to ensure that the Tianyuan family could continue to exist in the divine kingdom of Pingtian stably. This was because not only did the clan exist to protect the people who had come up with him from the Tianyuan continent, but it also affected the future generations who would come up from the Tianyuan continent. When passing through the tunnel of the Saints' world, they would be sent to one of the 49 Great Plains and 81 Great Planets. However, Jianchen believed that once he reached a certain level of strength, he would be able to change all of this. Perhaps he would be able to change this phenomenon so that all the people from the other world could gather in the Tianyuan family. Qi Qian was extremely excited after receiving Jianchen's promise. Although he was a god now, he had no confidence in breaking through to over God. Across the 36 provincial cities of the divine kingdom of Pingtian, there were several dozen or even over 100 gods in each city. However, there were only a handful of them who could become lords. If he could obtain the full assistance of the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan, Qi Qian believed that he would definitely be able to become a god. However, Qi Qian hesitated soon afterwards. He said to Jianchen, "But Patriarch, I already have a clan in the Kaiyang province. I'm a member of the Qi family." Jianchen waved his hand without minding it at all. He smiled faintly. "It's fine. After you join my Tianyuan family, you'll still be a member of the Qi family. I am indebted to the Tianyuan family. From today onwards, Qi Qian will join the Tianyuan family, Qi Qian said politely. In the Saints' world, many people would choose to join large clans, sects, and other organizations in order to obtain cultivation methods and reach higher levels of cultivation. Qi Qian had only made the same choice today. With my age and talent, they might not think highly of me if I joined those powerful clans or sections. Even if I manage to join them out of luck, I probably won't be treated with any importance. I'll just be left to fend for myself. Although the Tianyuan family can't be compared to those large sects and organizations, it's enough as long as the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan is willing to assist me in breaking through to Overgod. And there's another benefit to joining the Tianyuan family, which is that I don't have to worry about the revenge of the Mo family. The Mo family of the divine kingdom of Qingyang is renowned for their vengeful nature. They hold grudges and are extremely protective of their own. I wonder if the two protectors of the Mo family will hold any grudges against me today, thought Qi Qian. Qi Han greets the patriarch. At the same time, the great-granddaughter behind Qi Qian stepped forward as well. She bowed towards Jianqin politely. Many people in the surroundings looked at Qi Qian with eyes filled with envy. After all, Qi Qian had not joined the Tianyuan family through normal means. Instead, he had been invited by the Tianyuan family, and they had personally promised to assist him in breaking through to Overgod. After Jianqin's identity was exposed, his status in the space immediately became extremely special. Everyone no longer looked at him casually and boldly like before. Instead, their gazes were filled with reverence and respect. This was because he was an overgod. He was the sky of the Dong and province, the ruler of the province. Afterwards, Jianqin passed Qi Qian a medallion that represented his status as an elder of the Tianyuan family before continuing to comprehend the laws of the sword. In the blink of an eye, it had already been 2 decades since Jianqin's arrival. After comprehending the laws of the sword for a total of 20 years, the sword qi in the space suddenly became abnormally powerful. All the cultivators there felt like they had fallen into a sea of swords. They were enveloped by invisible sword qi. The sword qi was densely packed, filling every corner of the space. Even the origin energy in the surroundings seemed to be affected. The gentle origin energy became sharp at that moment. Everyone stopped cultivating. They used powerful origin energy to protect themselves, doing everything they could to keep the invisible sword qi at bay. Fortunately, the sword qi had appeared naturally and was not targeted at them. As a result, they did not suffer any injuries as they resisted with their full strength. However, there was one exception. He was the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianqin, who was covered in dust once again. At this moment, Jianqin remained seated like a statue. He did not move at all. Chapter 1820. It's the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan. That person is the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan. What's happening? Why has the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan suddenly given off such powerful sword qi? Has he broken through? The patriarch of the Tianyuan clan was already very powerful. I heard that the overgod of the Wainer clan was not the patriarch's opponent at all, being suppressed the entire time. Now that the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan has broken through again, just how powerful has he become? Is he a mid-overgod, or is he a late overgod? I heard that every breakthrough for overgods requires an extremely long period of cultivation. However, the Tianyuan family has only stayed here for 20 years, and they've broken through again. Their talent is just too terrifying. The patriarch of the Tianyuan clan has already become a peak expert in the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Even among overgods, there aren't a lot of people who are his opponent because the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan has comprehended the laws of the sword. Many cultivators stood in the distance as they cried out as they looked at Jianqin. Qi Qian, who had yet to leave, also felt joy from the bottom of his heart when he saw Jianqin break through again. He was now a member of the Tianyuan family. The more powerful the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan was, the more unshakable the status of the Tianyuan family would be. At the same time, his chances of becoming an over-god would increase as well. The powerful sword chi from Jianchen lasted for an entire day before finally dispersing slowly. Very soon, the surroundings returned to peace. With the disappearance of the powerful sword chi, the cultivators gathered around them all put away the powerful energy barriers around them. They all stared at Jianchen in awe. At this moment, Jianchen slowly opened his eyes. The moment he opened his eyes, a streak of light that seemed almost tangible shot out from his eyes. It directly struck a cliff several thousand meters away, producing a heavy thud. If it were not for the fact that the rocks here had become extremely tough from the slashes left behind by God King Duanmu when he was alive, Jianchen's gaze probably would have been enough to pierce through the mountain peak. I've finally broken through successfully to the partial achievement of sword spirit. Jianchen smiled faintly. After 20 years of seclusion and comprehension of the sword, he had broken through once again in the Divine King's dwelling. When I first reached the minor achievement of sword spirit, the laws of the sword were only equivalent to early overgod. Afterwards, I comprehended something on the second floor of the sword comprehension building, allowing me to take another step forward when I reached the minor achievement of sword spirit. After a few years of nurturing, my laws of the sword have reached the peak of the minor achievement of sword spirit, which is equivalent to mid-overgods in the saints' world. Now that my laws of the sword have reached the partial achievement of sword spirit, it's equivalent to the comprehension of late overgods, Jianchen thought. He immediately analyzed his current strength. In terms of comprehension of laws and cultivation, he was already a late overgod. The only thing he lacked was his cultivation. His chaotic body was still at the 10th layer, which was equivalent to a god. Only when he broke through to the 11th layer would his cultivation reach over God. Cultivation was the comprehension of the laws of the world. Cultivation was the energy in the Dantian. My chaotic Niden is still lacking a third of the energy before I can break through to the 11th layer. I need to find the remaining cultivation resources as soon as possible. Jianchen secretly made up his mind before leaving without any reluctance. After breaking through to the partial achievement of sword spirit, this place no longer held much significance to Jianchen. This was because this was only where the Divine King practiced the sword and not where the Divine King passed on his laws. Jianchen had already comprehended and absorbed all the comprehension of the laws of the sword that was beneficial to Jianchen. It would be difficult for him to make any more progress if he remained. However, what Jianchen did not know was that after he left, the place where he cultivated had become the most sought-after place. Everyone wanted to take it for themselves. It was as if to them, as long as they could comprehend the sword in this place, their chances of success would greatly increase. However, as people from various divine kingdoms had gathered there, the news of the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan's breakthrough was reported back to the clan as quickly as possible. The ancestor of the Mo family sat in a space at the top of a tower in black robes within the Mo family of the divine kingdom of Qingyang. He held a piece of damaged armor in his hand as he studied it repeatedly. Hesitation filled his eyes. This armor is far too damaged. Even if I find the corresponding materials, I won't be able to repair it with my current strength. However, if I don't repair it, the armor will only become an extremely rare and useless collector's item in my hands. I can sell it to those large sects and large clans, and I'll definitely be able to obtain quite a handsome reward. However, this armor is a god artifact after all. Even though it's damaged, I'm unwilling to sell it just like that. That's because the items given to me by those large sects and clans probably won't be able to increase my strength. No matter how many divine crystals and heavenly resources I have, my strength will remain the same if I can't break through with my comprehension of laws. However, if I can repair the armor and use it, it'll directly increase my strength, thought the ancestor of the Mo family as he became uneasy. Jianchen killed my beloved disciple, so he took away a lot of my fun. I will never forgive him. Although my cultivation has reached the peak of mid-over-god, I still don't have much confidence in blocking the 2 strands of sword chi from Jianqin. If I want to kill Jianqin, I need to find a way to block the 2 strands of sword chi. However, if I want to block the 2 strands of sword chi, I'll need to break through to late over-god or several over-gods working together. It'll probably be difficult for me to break through in a short amount of time, but finding over-gods at the same level to deal with Jianqin is extremely difficult as well. After all, basically everyone has learnt about Jianqin's strength and ability after the trip to the Divine King's tomb. It'll be difficult to get them to deal with Jianqin. Even if I really can get them to help, I won't be willing to pay the price. The ancestor of the Mo family looked at the damaged armor in his hand again and murmured, "It looks like I can only rely on this armor now. The armor is a god artifact, after all. It doesn't need to be completely repaired. Even if it's only a 10th or 20%, it'll be more than enough to block Jianqin's 2 strands of sword chi. However, the liquid is just too precious. Do I really have to use it like this?" The ancestor of the Mo family could not help but think of the droplets of liquid he had obtained by coincidence. He had discovered the droplets of liquid by accident in outer space. At that time, the droplets of liquid just hovered there silently as they gave off a strange pulse. The ancestor of the Mo family had no idea what the liquid was, but he knew that it was extraordinary. As a result, he stowed it away happily. Afterwards, after countless years of experimenting, he finally discovered the unique ability of the liquid, which was regeneration. He had no idea just how powerful the liquid was, or whether it could repair god artifacts. He only knew that a single droplet of the liquid had completely healed the damaged Supreme Quality Saint artifact he had collected in the past. The only flaw was that after the repair, its grade would drop from extreme grade to high grade. Chapter 1821. The ancestor of the Mo family hesitated as he looked at the damaged god artifact in his hand. The light in his eyes flickered. He was extremely hesitant. Afterwards, with a thought, a simple jade bottle appeared in his hand silently. The ancestor of the Mo family stared at the jade bottle and remained silent for a very long time. This was because this jade bottle contained the few drops of miraculous liquid that he had unintentionally obtained from the outer space. This liquid is extremely precious. That's without a doubt. But should I use it on the god artifact or not? And I can't be certain whether the liquid can repair the god artifact or not. If it can't be repaired, wouldn't I be wasting a treasure like this? The ancestor of the Mo family held the damaged god artifact in one hand and the jade bottle in the other. He felt extremely conflicted inside. Moreover, there's another important point. Treasuring a god artifact is a crime. Even infinite primes in the saints' world don't possess one. With my mere strength as an overgod, I definitely won't be able to keep the god artifact once news of this gets out. It might even lead to death. Of course, if the god artifact remained in its current damaged state, it wouldn't have attracted the attention of primordial realm experts. However, if I really did repair the god artifact, there would probably be more than just a single primordial realm expert looking for me. However, if I don't repair the god artifact, how am I supposed to kill Jianqin and avenge my disciple? The ancestor of the Mo family could not help but become furious when he thought about how the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan had killed his beloved disciple. Killing intent surged within him. Of course, the most important thing was the message the 2 protectors had brought back in the past. It made the ancestor of the Mo family feel pressured. The message was that the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianqin, would personally come to retrieve the god artifact before long. In the long run, I can't repair the god artifact right now because I can't protect it with my current strength. And I've heard that the only way to unleash the power of a god artifact is to reach the primordial realm. I'm still far too lacking right now. The desire in the ancestor's eyes gradually vanished, and he calmed down. He had already given up on using the wondrous liquid to repair the armor. "Greetings, ancestor. I have something important to report. Right at this moment, a voice that was filled with respect sounded from outside. "Speak," said the ancestor of the Mo family. "Ancestor, we've just received news that the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan in the Dong and province of the divine kingdom of Pingtian has broken through in the divine King Duanmu's dwelling." The people outside said politely. However, that was like a bolt out of the blue to the ancestor of the Mo family. He shuddered violently, and his face immediately sank. "The patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan has actually broken through. Is that true?" The ancestor of the Mo family growled. This was absolutely terrible news to him. "Ancestor, I've investigated the news many times, and it has been confirmed. The patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan has indeed broken through in the divine King Duanmu's dwelling. His current cultivation level is unknown," the people outside replied politely. The ancestor of the Mo family fell silent. His eyes sank, and only after quite a while did he wave his hand. "Old man understands. You can leave." "I'll be taking my leave then." The ancestor of the Mo family sat in the secret room. His sunken face became stern very soon. If Jianqin had not broken through, the ancestor of the Mo family would only treat him as a powerful opponent, a huge problem. Although he would pose some threat, it would not be life-threatening. This was because other than the profound sword qi that he feared, he did not care about Jianqin's cultivation at all. This was because the ancestor of the Mo family was already at the peak of mid-overgod, while Jianqin was only an early overgod. Even if he comprehended the laws of the sword, he would not be his opponent. If it were not for the threat of the two strands of profound sword qi, the ancestor of the Mo family would have directly charged towards Jianqin murderously after Jianqin killed his beloved disciple. Yet now he had actually heard that Jianqin had broken through. If he really did break through, wouldn't that mean that Jianqin's cultivation would be on the same level as his? If Jianqin really did stand at the same level as him, the ancestor of the Mo family knew that he would not be Jianqin's opponent with Jianqin's battle prowess as an overgod of the way of the sword and the two terrifying strands of profound sword qi. Since Jianqin has broken through, he will definitely come to the divine kingdom of Qingyang to look for me before long. I will never give him the god artifact. Not only will I not give it to him, but I'll even kill him to avenge my beloved disciple, the ancestor of the Mo family said sternly as cold killing intent filled his eyes. "It looks like I have to do this. This god artifact is my greatest trump card for killing Jianqin." The ancestor of the Mo family clenched his teeth. The ancestor of the Mo family gritted his teeth. Determination filled his face. Without any hesitation, he opened the bottle and carefully poured out a droplet of the precious, wondrous liquid onto the damaged armor. The liquid was transparent, but the moment it appeared, it gave off an indescribable, mysterious presence. When it came in contact with the damaged god artifact, it immediately fused with it silently. The ancestor of the Mo family stared at the damaged god artifact nervously. In reality, he had no idea whether the wondrous liquid could repair a god artifact or not. After a while, under the ancestor of the Mo family's extremely nervous gaze, a hazy light suddenly rose up from the damaged god artifact. It enveloped the entire god artifact in a single instance. The ancestor of the Mo family could clearly see that the extremely damaged god artifact was actually recovering at an extremely slow rate through the hazy light. Even though the rate of recovery could not be described as slow as a snail, one thing was undeniable, which was that the god artifact was slowly being repaired. It can actually be repaired. It can actually be repaired. Fantastic, fantastic. This is just fantastic. With the protection of this god artifact, how can a mere overgod like Jianqin harm me? Even though I'm still unable to unleash the god artifact's power with my current cultivation, it's not something an overgod can break through. The ancestor of the Mo family was extremely excited. His face had become completely red. He could swear that he had never been so excited ever since he began cultivating. For hours later, The hazy light around the god artifact slowly dispersed, revealing the original appearance of the god artifact. The god artifact was still damaged, but it had changed extremely clearly compared to before. This was because a few places had been repaired, and it seemed like it had been restored to its original state. Chapter 1822. The ancestor of the MO family did not possess a lot of these wondrous liquids. When he discovered them in outer space, he only had 6 droplets in total. He had used one of the 6 droplets to study the effects of the liquid. In the end, he wasted it on the damaged Supreme Quality Saint artifact, so he only had 5 droplets left. Even though the ancestor of the MO family did not know what the liquid was called, nor had he heard any legends about it in the saint's world, it was more than enough to show how precious the liquid was, since a single droplet could repair a damaged Supreme Quality Saint artifact. Originally, the ancestor of the MO family did not plan on using the liquid to repair the god artifact today. He knew that if the god artifact was damaged, he could still take it for himself with his strength. However, once the god artifact was repaired, it would be very difficult for him to keep it with his strength. As a matter of fact, as long as the news of him possessing a god artifact in perfect condition leaked out, countless experts would be drawn over. Moreover, these experts would not be at the Divine King realm. Instead, they would be at the Primordial realm, a realm that surpassed the Divine King. However, now that he had heard about Genshin's breakthrough, he had no choice but to repair the god artifact. He only had the confidence to kill the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan with the help of the god artifact. As the 5 droplets of wondrous liquid dripped into the god artifact, the damaged god artifact immediately began to glow with an even more intense, hazy light. The damaged parts began to repair at an even faster rate. The ancestor of the MO family's eyes were filled with nervousness, eagerness, and excitement as he stared at the rapidly repairing god artifact in his hand. Even though he had no idea whether he could keep the god artifact forever, being able to personally witness a damaged god artifact being repaired was something worth rejoicing over. The hazy light that enveloped the god artifact lasted for several hours before gradually disappearing. When the light completely dispersed, the god artifact's original appearance was finally revealed. The ancestor of the MO family could not help but become overjoyed when he saw the repaired god artifact. He murmured, "It's actually been completely repaired. It's actually completely repaired. Fantastic. The liquid is just too wondrous. It can even repair god artifacts. Although I don't have the ability to refine this god artifact right now, nor can I even unleash the power of the god artifact. As long as I wear it, I'll be able to block the attacks of any overgod with just the defenses of the god artifact. Even late overgods won't be my opponent," Jianshin sighed. The ancestor of the MO family was overjoyed when he thought up to that point. However, he also understood that he had to keep the god artifact a secret. He could not take it out unless he faced with danger. Patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan, so what if you have 2 terrifying strands of sword qi? I don't fear you anymore. The ancestor of the MO family's confidence swelled. At that moment, he was tempted to directly go to the divine kingdom of Pingtian and personally kill Genshin. After all, he had obtained the god artifact from Genshin. He was afraid that Genshin would leak the news of the god artifact. However, Genshin's strength should be on par with mine, and he has comprehended the laws of the sword. I'll be undefeatable with the god artifact, but killing him won't be easy. If he wants to flee, it'll be very difficult for me to stop him. I can't directly go to the divine kingdom of Pingtian right now. Whatever. Genshin probably won't leak the news of the god artifact so easily because he has no idea that I've already repaired it. What I need to do now is cast down the most powerful formation here and wait for Genshin to come. The sword-seeking province was one of the 36 provinces of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. At the same time, it was known as the greatest province. This was because the master of the province, Ling Hogong, was not only a powerful overgod who had comprehended the laws of the sword, but he was also one of the founding members of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. The sword-seeking province was also the only provincial city in the divine kingdom of Pingtian that was completely exempt from taxes. All the income in the provincial city belonged to Ling Hogong's Ling family. Just this alone was a great honor to the Ling family of the sword-seeking province. There was an extremely large, majestic estate in the center of the provincial city. The estate was where the greatest clan of the sword-seeking province, the Ling family, resided. Today, at the entrance of the Ling clan, there was a young man in a white robe walking slowly towards them. "Stop. This is the Ling family's estate. Outsiders are not allowed to approach." Before the young man could get close to the main gate of the Ling clan, he was stopped by the guards at the gate. The young man did not stop. Under the sharp gazes of the guards, he made his way to the entrance leisurely. He said to the guards in an amiable manner, "Please report that Jianqin from the Tianyuan family has come to visit. The patriarch has ordered that unless you're invited, no one is allowed to." A guard said emotionlessly as he glared at Jianqin. However, before the guard had even finished speaking, he suddenly came to a halt. His gaze changed drastically at that moment. He stared at Jianqin in disbelief and said in surprise, "Wait, what did you just say? The Tianyuan family? Which Tianyuan family is it? Don't tell me it's the Tianyuan family from the Dong and province." Jianqin smiled. "That's right. It's the Tianyuan family from the Dong and province." The expressions of the guards immediately changed when they heard that it was the Tianyuan family from the Dong and province. Their gazes towards Jianqin had already lost their sharpness and were filled with respect. "Esteemed guest, please wait for a moment. I'll inform the patriarch immediately." A guard ran off in a hurry. The patriarch of the Ling family, Ling Majian, was currently holding a clan meeting in the discussion hall. He sat high on the patriarch's throne as he was stern. He gave off a dignified presence. Several dozen members of the upper echelon of the Ling family sat below him. At this moment, a guard ignored the rules and rushed into the discussion hall in a hurry. He said politely, "Patriarch, there's a person outside who claims to be Jianqin from the Tianyuan family. He has come to visit our Ling family." "What? The Tianyuan family? The Tianyuan family from the Dong'an province?" Chapter 1823. Apart from the appearance of the divine king Duanmu's dwelling, there was only the birth of the Tianyuan family within the divine kingdom of Pingtian in the past few years. After establishing the Tianyuan family in the Dong and province, Jianqin, who was so mysterious that almost no one knew of his origins, engaged in a great battle with the second overgod, Weineryan, 1,000,000 kilometers away from the provincial city. Although the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan comprehended the laws of the sword, which was known as one of the laws with the greatest offensive power, Weineryan of the Weiner clan was not weak either. He comprehended the laws of strength, which was also one of the laws with the greatest offensive power. The two of them were on par in terms of comprehension of laws. However, the outcome of the battle shocked everyone who heard about it. Weineryan of the Weiner clan had actually suffered a crushing defeat. The patriarch of the Tianyuan family, Jianqin, had emerged unscathed. He had basically completely crushed Weineryan. Not only did the outcome of the battle shake up the entire Dong and province, but it also spread through the divine kingdom of Pingtian and the surrounding divine kingdoms, causing a huge uproar. The patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianqin, had demonstrated his strength to the world through his battle with Weineryan. At the same time, many people clearly witnessed his strength through the battle. As a matter of fact, countless people in the divine kingdom of Pingtian believed that the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianqin, was the greatest person in the 6 great provincial cities. This so-called greatest person was the most powerful person in the 36 provinces. At this moment, when the patriarch and the members of the upper echelon of the Ling family heard that the Tianyuan family had come to visit, they were all stunned. They were extremely surprised. At this moment, the patriarch of the Ling family seemed to think of something. His face suddenly changed, and he glared at the guard who had come to report. He asked urgently, "What did you just say? Who's the visitor?" The guard dared not tarry. He immediately repeated himself. "Patriarch, the person said that it's Jianqin from the Tianyuan family. Jianqin. Jianqin. Is he?" Towards the end, the guard seemed to understand something. His face changed drastically, and it was filled with fear and disbelief. At that moment, he could not help but think about the glare he had at the visitor. "Jianqin, isn't that the patriarch of the Tianyuan family? Are you sure you didn't hear wrong? The patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianqin, has actually come to visit our Ling family? Did we hear wrong? What kind of status does the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan possess? Moreover, our Ling family has no ties with the Tianyuan clan, so why has he come to visit us and personally?" At that moment, the discussion hall was the Tianyuan family, was the Tianyuan family of the Tianyuan family of the Tianyuan family, and of the upper echelon of the upper echelon of the family was. Who dares to impersonate the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan? Quick, everyone, come with me to receive the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan. At the same time, inform all the elders of the clan. The patriarch of the Tianyuan clan has gone as far as to lower himself to visit our Tianyuan family. Since the ancestor is not present, we will welcome the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan with the greatest ceremony. The patriarch of the Ling family, Ling Majian, stood up and said loudly to everyone. At the same time, he communicated with all the elders of the clan secretly. At that moment, all the elders in the clan, regardless of whether they were in seclusion or not, were awakened by the patriarch of the Ling family. Only a few seconds had passed since the previous night. The sky god elders were extremely fast. Almost as soon as they received Ling Majian's message, the sky god elders who were still in seclusion had completed their actions within a breath of time, even though they were several kilometers away from the patriarch of the Ling family. Very soon, the patriarch of the Ling family gathered all the upper echelon of the Ling family and the elders. They arrived at the entrance of the Ling family as quickly as possible. The patriarch of the Ling family, Ling Majian, saw Jianqin waiting outside from afar. His eyes immediately narrowed, and he could not help but show respect. Although Ling Majian had never seen the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan before, he was still the patriarch of an over-god organization after all. He had obtained a portrait of Jianqin through other channels and discovered that the person who had come to visit was exactly the same as the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianqin. Patriarch of the Ling family, Ling Majian greets the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan. The patriarch of the Tianyuan clan's visit has brought light to our Ling family. If we have neglected you in any way, please forgive us. Ling Majian bowed deeply towards Jianqin and said politely. After all, the person standing before him was a lord-level powerhouse. Moreover, he was an extremely powerful overgod. Greetings to the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan. Behind Ling Majian, the upper echelon of the Ling family, and all the elders bowed deeply towards Jianqin as well. They all showed respect. As a matter of fact, some of them even showed some uneasiness on their faces. Jianqin smiled faintly. He did not show any arrogance at all. After exchanging some pleasantries with the people of the Ling family, he was invited into the discussion hall. The patriarch of the Ling family no longer sat on the throne in the discussion hall. Instead, he sat with Jianqin with all the upper echelon and elders of the Ling family. They served the best fruits and tea to Jianqin. Jianqin conversed with the people of the Ling family casually, but only Jianqin remained the most composed out of all of them. Everyone in the Ling family, including the patriarch, was extremely careful when they conversed with Jianqin. They were afraid that they would offend this overgod if they were careless. The upper echelon and elders constantly tried to curry favor with him as well. Patriarch of the Ling family, have you received any news about Ling Hogong? At this moment, Jianqin became serious and began to ask about Ling Hogong. This was the main reason why he had come to the Ling family in the first place. Jianqin admired Ling Hogong's character quite a lot. He had not seen Ling Hogong since they parted ways in the Divine King's dwelling, so he began to worry for Ling Hogong. Ling Majian's face darkened when he mentioned this. He sighed gently. Ever since the ancestor went to the Divine King's dwelling, he still hasn't returned. At the same time, we haven't received any news, so we don't know much about the ancestor's situation. It's just that we heard that the ancestor offended an extremely large organization in order to obtain a sword in God King Duanmu's dwelling. Sai. Ling Majian's face was filled with worry. When he learnt just how powerful the organization his ancestor had offended was, he had paled on the spot. Chapter 1824. I just hope that the organization doesn't take this matter to heart. Otherwise, if they really do look into it, our Ling family will be in great trouble, Ling Majian said sternly. Jianqin sat there silently. He probably understood the power of the heavenly demon religion better than any other over-god in the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Even the peak organizations on the cloud plane dared not offend the heavenly demon religion so easily. Ling Hogong had indeed taken quite the risk in order to obtain the sword. I hope Ling Hogong can become powerful as soon as possible after obtaining the divine King Duanmu's legacy. Fortunately, he has only offended a vice leader of a branch of the heavenly demon religion on the cloud plane and not the entire heavenly demon religion, Jianqin thought. He was extremely reluctant to see Ling Hogong die to the hands of the heavenly demon religion. In the past few years, many people with unknown identities have appeared in our sword-seeking province. Even though they're all deities and some are only at the origin realm, our Ling family has been paying close attention to them. However, under the close observation of our Ling family, we discovered that these people seem to be coming for our Ling family. This is because they've basically chosen to stay in inns that are closest to our Ling family. They seem to be monitoring our every move, the clan leader said solemnly. The head of the Ling clan said in a low voice. His face was extremely serious, and there was a deep sense of helplessness mixed within. Even though they knew these people were monitoring their Ling family, they just did not dare to act recklessly. This was because their ancestor was not present. Without him, their Ling family's actions would be rather restricted during this sensitive period of time. This was because they were afraid that a random person would be sent by a large organization. Not only would that not be able to help the Ling family, but it would cause a storm to arrive prematurely. Unknown people? Jianqin's eyes narrowed when he heard that. He thought, are they from the heavenly demon religion? Or do they come from other clans with over-gods? However, there was nothing Jianqin could do about the current situation of the Ling family. Although he admired Ling Hogong's character and wanted to help him, he did not possess the ability to do so. Jianqin did not stay in the Ling family for too long. Half a day later, he bid farewell to the clan leader. Before he left, he passed a jade talisman to the patriarch of the Ling family, Ling Majian. He said indifferently, "This jade talisman contains a strand of the power of my soul. If Ling Hogong returns, or if your Ling family is in trouble and needs my help, you can crush this jade talisman. I will hurry over as quickly as possible." Jianqin's actions stunned Ling Majian, the various members of the upper echelon, and the elders of the Ling family. At that moment, all of them could not help but wonder what kind of relationship the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan had with their ancestor. It was the first time he had come to the Ling family, yet he was willing to help them so greatly. He even wanted to leave behind a jade talisman for them before he left. Even though he was doubtful, Ling Majian was still overjoyed. He accepted the jade talisman from Jianqin in a hurry and held it like it was a treasure. He thanked him constantly. Jianqin left the sword-seeking province. After confirming the direction, he directly made his way to the royal capital of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Back in the divine King Duanmu's dwelling, Ling Hogong did not know him at all, yet he was bold enough to draw his sword against an over-god because of him. Jianqin remembered this deeply. After that brief contact with Ling Hogong, Jianqin began to admire Ling Hogong's character. Now that Ling Hogong was in some trouble, how could he not help him? It was just a pity that he was still too weak right now. There was nothing he could do about the heavenly demon religion that was still a colossal existence to him. Otherwise, he would not have minded personally killing the vice leader of the heavenly demon religion, Huayan, to resolve Ling Hogong's worries. As for the great elder of the heavenly demon religion, he was indeed terrifying. He was so powerful that even Jianqin felt surprised. However, the heavenly demon religion had so many branches in the saints' world. Every single branch had more than a single vice leader. As a result, the entire heavenly demon religion had several dozen vice leaders. As a result, it was very unlikely for the great elder to appear if he only killed a vice leader of the heavenly demon religion. Ling Hogong, this is all I can help you with right now. I hope you take good care of yourself and become powerful soon, thought Jianqin. However, what Jianqin did not know was that the patriarch of the Ling family, Ling Majian, immediately locked himself in a secret room covered in layers of formations as soon as he left the sword-seeking province. His excitement and joy had completely vanished. The light in his eyes flickered as he stared at the jade talisman that Jianqin had given him. He became uncertain. A while later, he took out a jade box and carefully placed the jade talisman that Jianqin had given him inside. At the same time, he cast down layers of formations on the jade box. He did not carry the jade box with him. Instead, he gently placed it in the center of the room before silently leaving. Before long, Ling Majian arrived in an even more well-hidden room deep underground. He glanced around carefully, and only after confirming that there were no problems did he enter the room silently. As soon as he set foot in, the room was immediately enveloped by powerful formations. The formations were so powerful that even over-gods could resist them for a while. Most importantly, the formations could block out the senses of the soul. Only Ling Majian remained in the gloomy room. There was no one else there aside from him. Ling Majian arrived in the center of the room. He formed seals with both hands and used a secret technique. A complicated and profound formation gradually appeared on the floor of the room. Majian, you've summoned me using a secret technique. Has something important happened in the clan? At this moment, an old but vigorous voice rang out from the formation. A white-robed old man appeared in the formation. The old man had white hair and a ruddy complexion. He had the demeanor of a transcendent being. His eyes were bright and full of spirit, as sharp as a sword. Even though he seemed to be over 70 years old, he stood as straight as a javelin, like an unsheathed sword. A powerful sword intent radiated from his body. To no surprise, the old man was Ling Hogong, who had been there for quite some time. Ancestor, the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianqin, has just come to visit. Ling Majian told Ling Hogong everything about Jianqin's visit to the Ling family. He hid nothing from Ling Hogong. Ancestor, before the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan left, he gave me a jade talisman with a sliver of the power of his soul. He said that if the ancestor returned to the clan, or if our Ling family encountered any problems, to crush the jade talisman. Ancestor, may I ask if the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan is reliable and trustworthy? Ling Majian asked carefully. I never thought that Brother Jianqin would have already established a Tianyuan family in the Dong and province. Sigh, it's just a pity that old man can't show himself right now, or I would definitely have gone to congratulate him personally. Ling Hogong sighed emotionally. It had already been several decades since he had contacted the people in the clan. He had remained in seclusion in a secret place all this time, never coming into contact with the outside world. As a result, he had only just learnt that Jianqin had established a clan. although Old Man and Brother Jianchen haven't known each other for very long. And although the saints' world is filled with deception, Old Man and I have never misjudged Brother Jianchen. He is definitely a trustworthy person. Ma Jian, although Brother Jianchen is willing to help us, you have to act according to the situation. If our Ling family encounters problems that even Old Man can't deal with, you must not contact Brother Jianchen, just in case you cause trouble for him. Do you understand? Ling Hogong said. Chapter 1825. As you wish, Ancestor. The patriarch of the Ling family, Ling Majian, replied politely before ending the conversation with Ling Hogong. Ling Majian left the room carefully and cautiously before returning to the room where Jianchen's jade talisman was. The jade talisman that Jianchen had given to Ling Majian was placed in a jade box enveloped by formations. It sat in the center of the room, silently. Ling Majian clearly held caution towards Jianchen before. He was afraid that Jianchen would do something to the jade talisman that would allow him to observe everything he did. As a result, he did not take the jade talisman with him when he contacted Ling Hogong through a secret technique. However, after learning from his conversation with Ling Hogong that the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianchen, was a trustworthy person, his wariness plummeted to its lowest. He made his way to the center of the room and bent down to pick up the jade box. After removing the formations on it, he stowed it away in his space, ring solemnly, taking good care of it. At the same time, Ling Hogong sat on a mountain peak in an independent miniature world with an ancient sword on his back. He sighed emotionally as he watched the formations slowly vanish. I never thought that my good friends in the past would cut ties with our Ling family in such a straightforward manner when our Ling family is in such a situation. They're all afraid of getting into trouble. Instead, Jianchen, who we've only just met, actually comes to our Ling family at the risk of being targeted by the heavenly demon religion. Brother Jianchen, I, Ling Hogong, will remember your kindness. Even though you haven't provided any actual help to our Ling family, just your intentions are enough. Ling Hogong sighed emotionally. What are you talking about? Old Man Ling, you're already so old, so why are you still talking about love? Hurry up and forge a sword for Bao Bao. At this moment, a golden flying sword flew over from afar and transformed into a little girl with an illusory body. She was very cute and delicate. However, she just happened to have her hands on her hips as she scolded Ling Hogong like she was an old man. Ling Hogong immediately felt cold sweat run down his forehead when he heard the sword spirit say that he was in love. He said, "That's bullshit. Friendship is friendship. What does it have to do with love? Moreover, I'm no longer in the mood for love. What is a little sword spirit like, you know?" The sword spirit puffed up her cheeks from anger. She pointed at Ling Hogong and scolded, "How dare you? Old Man Ling, how dare you say that Bao Bao doesn't know? How dare you say that Bao Bao doesn't know? How dare you look down on Bao Bao? Bao Bao teach you a lesson." The golden sword immediately shot towards Ling Hogong's sword. Instantly, the sword energy was like a rainbow. Golden light filled the sky and emitted an incomparably dazzling light. Even though the golden flying sword was not controlled by a master, just the presence from the sword spirit was no weaker than an overgod. Ling's heavenly sword was a sword a Ling Ling was Ling Hogong was stern. He understood how powerful the sword spirit was, so he did not dare to be careless. He immediately drew the ancient sword on his back and called out, "Chaotic Heaven's sword style!" A streak of resplendent light shot out from Ling Hogong's hand, hurtling towards the sword spirit aggressively. If Jianchen were present, he definitely would have discovered that Ling Hogong was much more powerful than before. Not only had Ling Hogong successfully broken through from early overgod to mid-overgod, but his comprehension of the laws of the sword as well. Just the chaotic heaven's sword style alone allowed Ling Hogong to stand above mid-overgods. He would even be able to put up a fight against late overgods. Old Man Ling, you call that the chaotic heaven's sword style? It's basically an insult to the chaotic heavens sword style in your hands. Bao Bao will show you what the true chaotic heavens sword style is, the sword spirit said disdainfully. Suddenly, an even more powerful and pure sword technique shot out from the golden flying sword. With the appearance of the sword Qi, the entire world seemed to darken. The sword technique shone with endless light, blotting out the sun, moon, and stars, causing the entire world to dim in comparison. It was as if the sword technique had become the only thing in the world at that moment. When the two chaotic heavens sword styles collided, Ling Hogong's chaotic heavens sword style seemed to be as fragile as mud. It shattered silently. On the other hand, the sword spirit's chaotic heavens sword style was like a streak of light. It surged with sword Qi as it directly shot towards Ling Hogong with an unstoppable force. Swish! The sword Qi shot past Ling Hogong's head. Although it failed to injure him, it did sever his hair. Ling Hogong's hair was disheveled right now, and he seemed to be in a rather horrible shape. His sagely bearing had completely vanished. My hair! Why? You sword spirit are just too detestable. You've gone too far, Ling Hogong swore in a rather exasperated manner. He felt extremely gloomy inside. Ling Hogong was renowned in the divine kingdom of Pingtian, where very few people dared to offend him. Yet now he had been bullied to such a state by a sword spirit. Do you see that? This is the true chaotic heavens sword style. Old man Ling, I'll teach you to say that Bao Bao doesn't understand it again. Humph. The sword spirit appeared with her hands on her hips. She seemed complacent. You're completely unreasonable. All you know is to pester me endlessly, Ling Hogong said furiously. The sword spirit's complacent expression vanished in the blink of an eye when she heard that. Her chubby face suddenly sank, and she glared at Ling Hogong furiously with her large, pretty eyes. She complained, "How dare you go against your superiors and speak ill of Bao Bao? You even dare to say that Bao Bao is unreasonable and only knows how to pester you endlessly. Am Bao Bao a person like that? Old man Ling, looks like Bao Bao hasn't left a good enough impression on you. Humph. Bao Bao will definitely teach you a vicious lesson this time. I'll show you how powerful Bao Bao is. This time Bao Bao will shock you deeply and leave behind a deep enough impression in your heart so that you'll tremble in fear when you see Bao Bao in the future." The Divine Kingdom of Three Cauldrons was an organization similar to the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. It was only separated by the Divine Kingdom of 9 stars. However, the current Divine Kingdom of Three Cauldrons was no longer as dignified and glorious as before. Flames of war rose up everywhere in its vast territory. Basically, all the provincial cities in the Divine Kingdom had been reduced to ruins. Rivers of blood flowed, and the ground had been dyed red. Several decades ago, the 9th Army of the Heavenly Demon Religion had attacked the Divine Kingdom of Three Cauldrons. In just a few decades, the 9th Army had taken over all the provincial cities in the Divine Kingdom. An army of 100,000 directly approached the royal capital of the Divine Kingdom, surrounding it. Now, the Divine Kingdom of Three Cauldrons, which was basically as powerful as the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian, only had a single royal capital left standing. Even though the 9th Army of the Heavenly Demon Religion only had 100,000 people, it was nothing before the Divine Kingdom of Three Cauldrons, which numbered over 100 million. Chapter 1826. Currently, the remaining forces of the Divine Kingdom of Three Cauldrons were all stationed in the royal capital. They used the powerful formations of the royal capital and the national treasure to fend off the 9th Army of the Heavenly Demon Religion, temporarily entering a stalemate with the 9th Army of the Heavenly Demon Religion. The remaining forces of the Divine Kingdom of Three Cauldrons, the powerful formations of the royal capital, and the national treasure created an extremely powerful defense. Even though the Heavenly Demon Religion was far more powerful than the Divine Kingdom of Three Cauldrons, they struggled to breach the royal capital in a short amount of time. However, whether it was the ninth army of the heavenly demon religion or the remaining forces of the divine kingdom of three cauldrons. They all understood that this stalemate could not be maintained for too long. Against the ninth army that was far more powerful than the divine kingdom of three cauldrons, their destruction was only a matter of time. Naturally, news of the battle between the heavenly demon religion and the divine kingdom of three cauldrons had spread long ago. Even though many organizations hated the heavenly demon religion to the core, the strength of the heavenly demon religion filled everyone with a sense of powerlessness. As a result, even though the divine kingdom of three cauldrons was surrounded by the heavenly demon religion and had sent out a request for help, not a single organization came to their aid. This was because the divine kingdom of three cauldrons' opponent this time was the heavenly demon religion that many organizations feared. Even though they could easily fend off the ninth army if they worked together, or even destroy the ninth army, no one dared to do so. Once the ninth army was heavily injured, there was still the eighth army, the seventh army, and even the first army that could cause many people to pale in fear. As a result, countless people sympathized with the divine kingdom of three cauldrons' current predicament, but no one dared to interfere. At this moment, there was a medium-sized military camp 100 kilometers away from the royal capital of the divine kingdom of three cauldrons. Black clouds churned above the camp as a surging demonic aura gathered there. Every soldier in this military camp cultivated a very powerful and overbearing demonic cultivation method. Therefore, not only did these soldiers have extraordinary cultivation, but their combat strength was also extremely powerful. It was also because of this that the Ninth Legion was able to utterly defeat the divine kingdom of three cauldrons' army of over 100 million with a mere 100,000 soldiers, forcing them to flee in defeat all the way to the imperial city. There was a majestic divine hall in the center of the camp. It was completely blood-red, as if it had been drenched in blood. Vaguely, it gave off the smell of blood. Just by standing outside the temple, one would feel an incomparable sense of oppression. At this moment, a heavy thud suddenly rang out from the divine hall. Afterwards, a rough, cold voice rang out, "It's been 10 years. It's been 10 whole years. Yet our ninth army still hasn't broken through the imperial capital of the divine kingdom of three cauldrons. Are the three of you brainless? Can't you think of a way to take this place as quickly as possible? I've already stared at this shitty city for 10 years. I feel annoyed whenever I look at this shitty city." The person who spoke was a burly man. At that moment, he sat on the commander's seat and glared at the group of generals below him with a fiendish gaze. The man was the commander of the ninth army of the heavenly demon religion. He was known as the Blood God's Hand, Yen Wuming. At the same time, he was an extremely powerful divine king realm expert. Facing the enraged regiment commander, the faces of the group of officers sitting below all turned pale. Clearly, they were extremely afraid of this regiment commander. Every one of them felt as if they were sitting on a carpet of needles. Yen Wuming. At this moment, a gloomy voice rang out in the hall. An illusory, extremely handsome young man in white robes appeared out of thin air. This young man had a feminine expression on his face. At first glance, he was an indescribably handsome man. However, at the next moment, he seemed to be a peerless beauty whose looks could topple nations. If it were not for the fact that he did not have the symbol of a woman on his chest, many people would have mistaken him for a woman. The commander of the ninth army of the heavenly demon religion, Yen Wuming, stared at the young man coldly. The vicious light in his eyes did not decrease at all. He smiled and said coldly, "I was wondering who it was that dared to call me by my name. So it's Protector Zung. Protector Zung, you must have come all the way here with your soul. You must not have come for something as simple as a stroll. If you have anything to say it quickly. Once you're done, leave my territory as soon as you're done." "Humph, Yen Wuming, how arrogant of you. I am a protector of the heavenly demon religion. I can come and go as I please no matter where the 9 armies are. You have no right to speak to me." Protector Zung said coldly, "I don't have time to waste with a she-male like you. If you have anything to say it quickly. Once you're done, leave my territory as soon as you're done, Yan Wuming said impatiently. A vicious light flickered in his eyes. You. Protector Zeng was furious. His face was ashen from anger. He pointed at Yan Wuming furiously. However, looking at Yan Wuming's fearless appearance, Protector Zeng did not dare to do anything in the end. Even if his original body was present, he would not be Yan Wuming's opponent, let alone the fact that he was just a soul projection. Protector Zeng sucked in a deep breath and forcefully suppressed his fury. He said coldly, I've only come to ask about one thing. Have you captured the successor of the divine King Duanmu? Humph. Can't you see that I'm attacking the divine kingdom of 3 cauldrons right now? The divine kingdom of 3 cauldrons has 3 divine kings. If I'm not here, my 9th army will definitely be wiped out by the 3 divine kings. Why the hell would I care about the successor of Duanmu? Moreover, what does Duanmu's successor have to do with me? Yan Wuming said coldly. Protector Zeng sneered. Yan Wuming, I won't hide it from you. Vice Leader Huai and is extremely concerned about the divine king, Duanmu. Before long, Vice Leader Huai and will emerge from seclusion. Once he learns that the successor of the divine King Duanmu is still in the world, he will become furious. The consequences are not something that you can bear. Yan Wuming finally became stern. Clearly, he was still extremely fearful of the vice leader of the heavenly demon religion. Yan Wuming, I've delivered the message. Do as you see fit. I'll take my leave, Protector Zeng said coldly before vanishing. Yan Wuming sat on the commander's seat emotionlessly. The light in his eyes flickered, and a while later he ordered a general below, Lu Shan, take some people and capture Ling Hogong for me. Chapter 1827. Yes, sir. A general below stood up and knelt down on one knee. He accepted the order politely. After leaving the divine hall, Lu Shan did not hesitate at all. He immediately summoned his 2 lieutenants. Commander Lu, what's the matter? Why have you summoned the 2 of us so urgently? Are you preparing to attack the royal capital of the divine kingdom of 3 cauldrons again? Very soon. 2 burly men in black robes strode over from afar. They radiated with demonic aura. Although they seemed to be strolling leisurely, they could easily cross several hundred or even 1,000 meters with every step they took. It was as if the ground had shrunk to an inch. When they were talking, the 2 of them were still several kilometers away. When they finished speaking, it had only been 2 breaths of time. However, in this short period of time, they had already crossed a distance of several kilometers and appeared in front of Commander Lu Shan, whom they spoke of. You must have heard about the matter of the divine King Duanmu's successor. Earlier, Protector Zeng sent a sliver of his soul to personally ask about this matter. As a result, the commander has ordered me to go to the divine kingdom of Pingtian and capture Ling Hogong. The 2 of you will come with me, Lu Shan said to the 2 of them. Not only were the 2 of them his lieutenants, but they were also his sworn brothers. Protector Zeng is personally asking about this matter? Commander Lu, I remember that our regiment commander and Protector Zeng have always been at odds. Why would regiment commander listen to Protector Zeng's words? Hearing Lu Shan's words, one of the deputy generals said rather puzzledly. Lu Shan became stern. He said sternly, Vice Leader Huai has emerged from seclusion. The expressions of the 2 lieutenants changed when they heard that. They became filled with undisguised respect and reverence. There's no time to lose. Commander Lu, let's set off quickly. However, this kid Ling Hogong is influential. He's actually able to attract Protector Zeng's attention, and our commander has personally ordered us to capture him. With us 3 over-gods personally taking action this time. Even if Ling Hogong dies, it'll be worth it. Lu Shan's 2 lieutenants sneered as a vicious light appeared in their eyes. Outside the majestic royal capital of the divine kingdom of Pingtian, many cultivators and caravans would pass through the huge gates of the royal capital every single day on the many tunnels that led in and out of the royal capital. Occasionally, one could even see luxurious carriages driven by precious exotic beasts, slowly approaching the gates of the royal capital. Those who had the qualifications to own these carriages were, without a doubt, influential figures with some influence. However, no matter how great your background was, even if you came from clans with over-gods, flying was forbidden when you entered the royal capital, because this was out of respect for the imperial city. Otherwise, unless you were as powerful as the divine king, you would not be able to ignore the rules and directly fly into the royal capital. Take it. This is your medallion to enter the city. Remember, you have to pay 10 low-grade divine crystals for every day you stay in the royal capital, or you'll be captured by the guards of the royal capital. A guard passed a medallion to Jianchen at the gates of the royal capital and warned Jianchen. Jianchen entered the royal capital with the medallion. What dense origin energy! Compared to the Dong and province, the origin energy here is several times denser. Not only is there a sizable divine crystal mine below the royal capital, but the formations cast down in the royal capital have gathered all the origin energy within a radius of 10 million kilometers. What extravagance! Jianchen walked through the streets of the royal capital as he studied the surroundings with interest. He observed the layout of the royal capital. His current comprehension of the laws of the sword had reached the level of a late over-god. His vision was so great that it could not be compared to the past. With a single glance, he could see many hidden things. The entire royal city is enveloped by an extremely tremendous formation. Every single street and even every single store here is connected to the formation, so the defenses of the entire royal city are impregnable. Even if over-gods fight in the royal city, they won't be able to cause any damage to the structures in the city. This is because the tremendous defensive formation has reached the level of the divine king. Only divine kings can get through it. Moreover, apart from the defensive formation, there are also trapping formations and killing formations. With the protection of these formations, even if a divine king comes to make trouble in the royal capital, they'll be in serious trouble. Jianchen sighed in amazement from the bottom of his heart. He was amazed by the power of the royal capital. He thought that if the formations of the Dong and province were as powerful as this, he would truly have nothing to worry about. At this moment, Jianchen came to a halt. He subconsciously glanced at a store that he was about to pass by. The words "True Sword Pavilion" immediately entered Jianchen's eyes. The words were written in a flamboyant style, and a sharp sword qi seemed to surge out from them. The True Sword Pavilion was clearly a store that specialized in selling flying swords. Jianchen hesitated slightly before entering without any hesitation. There were all sorts of flying swords displayed in the True Sword Pavilion. A few people gathered in groups of 2s and 3s in the large store. They were currently examining the flying swords in a gentlemanly manner, sometimes shaking their heads in disappointment and sometimes nodding in praise. There were a few beautiful women with professional smiles on their faces as they politely welcomed the guests and patiently introduced the various flying swords one after another. There was a group of people who caught the most attention among them. They had basically become the center of attention in the True Sword Pavilion, attracting everyone's attention. They were 2 women and a young man. One of the women had a devastatingly beautiful appearance. Not only was she devastatingly beautiful, but her temperament was also extremely outstanding. She also gave off an otherworldly aura. Her expression was gentle, and she looked gentle and quiet. Just a glance at her was enough to warm people's hearts. The other woman also had an extraordinary appearance, and her expression was filled with an undisguised arrogance. Her slightly curled lips seemed to show that she was a woman with a fierce tongue. As for the young man, he was dressed in luxurious clothes and was extremely handsome. However, his face was filled with arrogance, as if he was looking down on everyone. It was obvious with a single glance that he was a wastrel from an aristocratic clan. The 3 of them were accompanied by a few guards. Even though the guards were only at the peak of reciprocity, it was still possible to tell that the 3 of them were anything but ordinary. Chapter 1828. The other haughty woman couldn't help but feel slightly angry when she saw the young man adore her sister so much while ignoring her. Her expression became somewhat unsightly. "Greetings, young master. May I ask how I can be of service to you?" At this moment, a soft and pleasant voice rang out. A charming female attendant, who only seemed to be in her 20s, came to receive Jianchen. She smiled faintly and was extremely polite. Jianchen glanced past the dazzling array of flying swords casually, and a sliver of disappointment appeared on his face. He asked the female attendant, "Do you have any better swords? They have to be high quality at the very least. Of course, it would be even better if you have supreme quality ones." Jianchen's flying snow sword had been destroyed long ago. He had never been able to find a suitable flying sword in the past few years. Firstly, it was impossible to find a better flying sword in a place like the Dong'an province. Secondly, medium-quality saint artifacts were no longer of any use to him with his current strength. Even high-quality saint artifacts probably would not last him long. Only supreme-quality saint artifacts were suitable. However, even a high-quality saint artifact had never appeared in the Dong'an province, let alone a supreme-quality saint artifact. "What? You want supreme-quality flying swords?" The face of the charming woman immediately changed when she heard Jianchen's words. She cried out in disbelief. Her cry immediately attracted the attention of all the other customers in the store. Immediately, all of them turned their heads and stared at Jianchen in surprise. Even the two beautiful women and the profligate young man turned their heads. They all stared at Jianchen. What did I hear? What did I hear? Someone actually wants to buy a supreme quality saint artifact? Did I hear wrong? Someone actually wants to buy a supreme quality saint artifact here? Heavens! Where did this bumpkin come from? He wants to buy a supreme quality saint artifact as soon as he comes in. What does he think supreme quality saint artifacts are? Something that can be found on the streets? Or does he have no idea just how valuable supreme quality saint artifacts are? The profligate young man could not help but laugh aloud. His words were filled with undisguised mockery and recklessness. "Pfft, I'm going to die from laughter. Ha ha ha, I'm going to die from laughter." As the young man laughed, the slightly arrogant woman could not help but laugh aloud as well. She stared at Jianchen like she was looking at an idiot. Even the extremely gentle woman could not help but smile faintly. She studied Jianchen carefully. However, when the young man saw her smile, his face immediately sank. A sliver of coldness appeared in his eyes as he cursed inside. "God damn it, Ruru is actually smiling. Ruru is actually smiling. I've pursued Ruru for so long, but she's never smiled at me. Yet, this bumpkin who came from who knows where can make her smile with just a few words. God damn it, God damn it." At that moment, the young man's gaze towards Jianchen became rather hostile. Hidden within his gaze was the flames of jealousy. "Bastard, if this bumpkin can make Rur smile, then so be it, but you just happen to be so handsome. God damn it, God damn it." The young man was furious. His gaze gradually became piercing. Jianchen frowned. He glanced at the young man and woman who had mocked him. At the same time, he realized that he had probably underestimated the value of supreme quality saint artifacts. "Don't you have any supreme quality saint artifacts for sale here?" Jianchen asked the female attendant. The female attendant looked at Jianchen strangely. Even though she had already determined that Jianchen was definitely not someone who had come to buy flying swords, she still replied politely, "Young master, I'm sorry to disappoint you. We really don't have any supreme quality saint artifacts here, let alone our true sword pavilion. There's probably no place in the entire divine kingdom of Pingtian that sells supreme quality saint artifacts. This is because probably only His Majesty can take out supreme quality saint artifacts in our divine kingdom of Pingtian. Supreme quality saint artifacts are actually so valuable." Jianchen murmured. He was secretly stunned. The value of supreme quality saint artifacts had indeed exceeded his expectations. The enchanting woman who had received Jianqin rolled her eyes when she heard Jianqin's murmur. She felt extremely gloomy inside. You don't even know the value of supreme quality saint artifacts, yet you want to buy one as soon as you come. Aren't you a typical bumpkin? Haha, he actually doesn't know the value of supreme quality saint artifacts at all. A person who doesn't even know what supreme quality saint artifacts look like dares to buy one shamelessly. What a joke. This is the first time I've seen such a weirdo in all my life. Even if he really does possess a supreme quality saint artifact, he probably doesn't have the ability to use it, the haughty woman giggled. Her eyes were filled with disdain. Jianqin frowned heavily. Even though he was not interested in arguing with these people who were only deities at most, he would still be in a bad mood after being mocked time and time again. He immediately stared at the woman coldly and said emotionlessly, "Miss, whether I've seen a supreme quality saint artifact or not doesn't seem to have anything to do with you. Even if I really can't use a supreme quality saint artifact, what does that have to do with you?" The haughty woman glanced at Jianqin as deep disdain filled her eyes. She did not reply, as if Jianqin had no right to speak to her. Instead, she looked at the gentle, virtuous woman beside her and said, "Sister Rue, let's go. Ignore this bumpkin. No matter how pretty he is, he can't hide his bumpkin nature." The haughty woman paused when she reached there. She glanced at Jianqin again in disdain and continued, "Even if he's faking it all, it only means that he's putting on an act. He just wants to attract Sister Rue's attention, or even slowly win her heart. But he's underestimating Sister Rue far too much. Does he think he can fool us with his little tricks? It'll only make us look down on him more and more." Chapter 1829. If that country bumpkin had an ordinary appearance, it would have been fine. However, he was even more handsome than him. In particular, that country bumpkin faintly revealed a strong sense of self-confidence, which made him feel extremely displeased. The woman called Rue nodded gently. She was gentle, virtuous, and peaceful. Everything she did and said was like the daughter of a large clan. She did not give off any sense of arrogance at all. She stared at Jianqin again and studied him seriously before making her way to the second floor. The young man just happened to notice Rue's actions, which immediately made his face become even uglier. He glared at Jianqin resentfully before making his way to the second floor. Jianqin did not care about any of this. As his strength increased, his mental state gradually changed as well. These wastrels who were deities at most were only children in his eyes. If a child scolded an adult, was he supposed to scold them back? That would only make him seem narrow-minded. Moreover, he knew that asking for a supreme quality saint artifact as soon as he came in had been a little too abrupt. "Then do you have any high-grade flying swords?" Jianqin asked again. He could only ask for the next best thing, since he could not buy a supreme quality saint artifact. The woman who received Jianqin glanced at the group of people who had already vanished from the staircase. She clearly became rather impatient with Jianqin's question, but she did not show it at all. This was because she vaguely understood that Jianqin had asked for a supreme quality saint artifact right from the start, just to attract the attention of the girl called Rue. Asking about a high-quality saint artifact right now was just to give himself an excuse to enter the second floor. "Young master, we just happen to have a few high-quality saint artifacts, but they're all on the second floor." The woman continued to smile like a professional. It was impossible to tell what she was thinking. "Take me up there," Jianqin said without any hesitation at all. He really did lack a suitable weapon right now. "Yes, young master. Please come with me." The woman scorned and sighed as she led Jianqin to the second floor extremely politely. As soon as he entered the second floor, Jianqin saw the three disciples with a single glance. They were currently choosing their flying swords carefully under the protection of a few guards. The three disciples had clearly discovered Jianqin as well. The young man's face immediately darkened as he furiously said, "Brat, you really are like a ghost that won't leave. Wherever we go, you'll follow. If you know what's good for you, piss off immediately. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. The young man had believed that Jianshin's appearance on the first floor of the True Sword Pavilion was only a coincidence. However, after hearing the arrogant woman's words, he became slightly convinced that Jianshin only wanted to buy a supreme quality saint artifact as soon as he entered the True Sword Pavilion to attract Ruru. In order to prevent Ruru from paying too much attention to Jianshin, the young man hurriedly got Ruru to enter the second floor of the True Sword Pavilion. However, the young man had never thought that Jianshin would actually follow the three of them to the second floor as soon as they entered. This confirmed his suspicions that Jianshin had come for Ruru. Ruru was the goddess that he had admired for a very long time. How could he allow someone who was just as handsome as him to attract her attention? As a result, he made up his mind that he could not allow Jianshin to remain here no matter what. When the arrogant woman saw Jianshin follow them, a sliver of impatience appeared on her face. However, she seemed to think of something, and a gleam of light flashed through her eyes. She thought, the person that Yang Tai truly likes is Ruru. As long as Ruru isn't married, Yang Tai won't give up. This person seems like a talent as well. If he really can capture Ruru's heart, it'll be good for me. At the very least, Yang Tai will give up on Ruru. When she thought up to there, the arrogant woman did not feel any repulsion towards Jianshin's existence at all. Instead, she became rather eager to see if Jianshin could really capture Ruru's heart. Yang Tai clearly can't help himself. With Yang Tai's background, that person will definitely suffer greatly. No, I have to help that person, thought the woman. Just when she was about to help Jianshin out, she heard Jianshin's voice ring out. You think too highly of yourself. I've only come here to buy a flying sword because it just so happens to be on the way. How am I tailing you? Also, please watch your mouth. Be careful of what you say, Jianshin said indifferently with some coldness. As the saying went, even a person made out of clay had a temper. Even though Jianshin did not want to lower himself to the same level as these people, if they crossed his bottom line, he would probably have no choice but to teach them a lesson. Everyone on the second floor of the True Sword Pavilion was stunned by Jianshin's threatening words. They all turned around and stared at Jianshin in disbelief. The female attendant who had led Jianshin to the second floor paled slightly. She knew the young man's background very well. He was definitely one of the most important figures in the royal capital. Very few people dared to offend him. Isn't this person a little too bold? Doesn't he know who he's threatening? That's the young master of the Yang family, thought the female attendant. At that moment, she had no idea whether bringing Jianshin to the second floor was the right decision or the wrong decision. The consequences of offending the Yang family would definitely not be good. For a moment, even the young man was rendered speechless. He stared at Jianshin in a daze, as if he was unable to react. This was the first time in his life that someone had threatened him. Jianshin ignored everyone's shock. He made his way over to the high-quality flying swords and studied them carefully. He could tell with a single glance that there were only 4 high-quality flying swords on the second floor of the True Sword Pavilion. Although there were quite a few other flying swords, they were all medium-quality swords without exception. 2 of the 4 high-quality flying swords possessed the attributes of the 5 elements. They shone with dazzling, fire-red light and earthen-yellow light. The other 2 flying swords were enveloped by a powerful white light. From the outside, all that could be seen was a ball of dazzling white light. It was very difficult to see the actual flying swords hidden within. A gleam of light flickered through Jianshin's eyes as he stared at the 2 flying swords. His gaze directly pierced through the light from the 2 flying swords, allowing him to clearly see the actual swords hidden within. How much for this sword? Jianshin pointed at one of the high-quality flying swords as he asked the female attendant. It was also at this moment that Yang Tai finally returned to his senses. His face sank as he became furious. He pointed at Jianshin and called out, How bold of you to threaten this young master. Do you know who I am?" With Yang Kai's call, the guards he had brought with him all began to move. They surrounded Jianqin as they glared at Jianqin viciously. Although they were only at peak reciprocity, even a few deities or gods would not dare to touch them in the royal capital. This was because touching them would mean offending the Yang family. Chapter 1830. Cut off this person's tongue for this young master. This young master wants him to be unable to speak from now on. After that, break his arms and legs and bring him back to the clan. This young master wants him to understand the consequences of daring to threaten this young master. Yang Tai ordered the guards. "Yes, young master." The guards all responded. Cold light flickered through their eyes as they all moved towards Jianqin in an attempt to capture Jianqin. They were all extremely familiar with the technique and worked together with great teamwork. Clearly, they had done something like this countless times already. However, just when their hands were about to touch Jianqin, there was a sudden flash of white light. The white light was extremely small, only the size of a finger, but it appeared at an unbelievable speed. Before they could even sense its existence with their strength at peak reciprocity, the white light had already vanished silently. In the next moment, the guards felt a heart-wrenching pain from their arms at the same time, causing them to involuntarily cry out. Their voices were filled with pain. Bright red blood gushed out from their arms like a fountain. The arms of the guards had all been severed from their bodies. They had been severed without them realizing it at all. The eyes of the people on the second floor of the true sword pavilion suddenly narrowed. They all widened as they stared at the armless guards in disbelief. They were all shocked, confused, and doubtful. None of them were powerful. Aside from the woman called Ru, who was an early deity, the others were all at reciprocity. They did not even have the right to observe the flash of white light with their strength. As a result, they naturally had no idea how the arms of the guards had been severed. All they saw was the guards extending their hands towards Jianqin. However, just when they had extended their hands halfway, they had been severed from their bodies without any prior signs. They had directly fallen to the ground. It was an extremely strange sight. Only the woman called Ruru sensed the flash of white light with her cultivation as a deity. Disbelief filled her eyes as she stared at the white-robed Jianqin, who stood there leisurely. She did not see how Jianqin had done it either. As a matter of fact, she could see that Jianqin had not even moved a finger as he stood there. However, she knew that the loss of the arms of the guards was directly related to Jianqin. The guards who had lost their arms all paled as they cried out in pain. Their cries were earth-shattering when they connected, let alone the entire true sword pavilion. Even the people on the streets in the distance could hear their cries clearly. Jianqin frowned. He said, "If you want to scream, go downstairs. Don't get in the way of me buying a flying sword." With that, Jianqin kicked out a few times without holding back, kicking the guards out of the window like dead dogs. They landed on the streets outside heavily. His actions immediately caused the female attendant, who had led him up, to pale in fright. She thought, "Oh no. This person has completely offended the Yang family now. The Yang family definitely won't let this go. Although this has nothing to do with me. I was the one who brought this guest up after all. I probably won't be able to escape the punishment of the Yang family. How dare you injure this young master's guard? Do you know who this young master is? I'm the young master of the Yang family." Yang Tai's face paled as he pointed at Jianqin furiously. The Yang family? Jianqin's face changed. He could not help but glance at the young man carefully. He asked, "Is it Yang Kai's clan?" Yang Tai's face brightened when he heard that. He thought that Jianqin was afraid, so he immediately became arrogant. He said proudly, "That's right, Yang Kai is my great-grandfather. Looks like you're not ignorant after all, to actually know my great-grandfather's name. If you know what's good for you, kneel before me immediately and kowtow 9 times. Then, I won't make things difficult for you today." Yang Tai could only blame his poor eyesight. He failed to see that when Jianqin called out Yang Kai's name, Jianqin's expression remained the same. He was extremely calm and did not show any fear at all. Moreover, he directly called Yang Kai by his name. He did not refer to him as senior like everyone else. Your great-grandfather does have some strength, but who knows how many people are stronger than your great-grandfather in the world? There are some people you can't afford to provoke, which will only lead to your death. Yang Tai said indifferently. There was some coldness in his voice. I'll let you go this time out of respect for your great-grandfather, but only this time. I won't do it again. That's right. There are many people stronger than my great-grandfather in the world, but you're not one of them. Moreover, with your lowly status, you don't have the right to speak to me like that. However, I'll remember what you've said today. I'd like to see just how long you can be arrogant for, Yang Tai said viciously. He knew that he was not Jianqin's opponent with his current strength. He could only return and get reinforcements. Afterwards, Yang Tai looked at Ruru and said, Ruru, let's go. Young Master Yang, I still haven't chosen my flying sword. You can go back first, Ruru said to Yang Tai gently and calmly. Yang Tai's face immediately became extremely ugly. He swung his sleeve and turned around to leave with a sunken face. Yang Tai, wait for me. The haughty woman bid farewell to Ruru in a hurry and immediately chased after him with her guards. Jianqin looked at the flying sword he had his eyes on again and asked the attendant, How much is this flying sword? The charming attendant basically cried as she accompanied Jianqin. Regardless of whether Jianqin had actually come to buy a high-grade flying sword or not, even though she would receive a handsome reward from selling a high-grade flying sword, she did not care about that at all. All she wanted was for Jianqin to leave as soon as possible and divert the attention of the Yang family. With the true sword pavilion's background, there was no need to fear the Yang family, but she was just an attendant with no background. Moreover, she was the one who had brought Jianqin to the second floor. If the Yang family decided to pursue the matter, she would definitely suffer. However, she did not dare to say that out loud. This was a person who did not even fear the Yang family, so he definitely came from a large clan. She did not dare to offend someone like that. Young master, this flying sword is called Startling Rainbow. It's sold for 6 million high-grade divine crystals, the attendant said as she felt extremely uneasy. What? 6 million high-grade divine crystals? Jianqin was stunned when he heard the price. Even the flying snow sword from the Dong and province only sold for 100,000 mid-grade divine crystals. Chapter 1831. The flying snow sword was a medium-quality saint artifact, while the startling rainbow sword was only a high-quality saint artifact. There was only a difference of a single grade between them, but the difference in price was several hundred times. Jianqin was extremely surprised by this. Jianqin stared at the startling rainbow sword that shone brightly and was surrounded by sword qi. He fell silent for a moment, but the light in his eyes flickered as he hesitated. Clearly, the startling rainbow sword's price had completely exceeded Jianqin's expectations. It actually cost a terrifying 6 million high-grade divine crystals. That was high-grade divine crystals, not mid or low-grade divine crystals. Although he still had the 10 blocks of high-grade divine crystals from the divine king of the divine kingdom of Pingtian, which was more than enough for him to buy the startling rainbow sword, he wanted to exchange them for the startling rainbow sword. He originally planned on giving them to Shangguan Mu, and the others after exchanging them for mid and low-grade divine crystals. He did not want to waste too much here. 6 million high-grade divine crystals was equivalent to 600 million mid-grade divine crystals. Such a tremendous amount of resources was enough for all of them to become gods. Of course, that was only if their comprehension of laws could keep up. Young master, the price of the startling rainbow sword is actually relatively low among high-quality saint artifacts. Many slightly better high-quality saint artifacts can reach the price of 10 million. May I ask if young master wishes to buy this high-quality saint artifact? The attendant said, although his tone was very polite, the anxiety in his voice could be heard by anyone. As for her last sentence, it even seemed like she was trying to chase him away. She was basically telling him to buy the high-quality saint artifact as soon as possible if he wanted to buy it, or leave if he did not want to buy it. This was because Jianqin had offended the people of the Yang family. If Jianqin continued to stay, she would not be able to avoid trouble. She naturally hoped that Jianqin would leave sooner so that the attention of the Yang family would be diverted away. Jianqin seemed to understand what the attendant was implying. He glanced at the attendant and said indifferently, a medium-quality saint artifact is only 100,000 mid-grade divine crystals. Why is a high-quality saint artifact so expensive? Looks like this young master doesn't understand the value of a high-grade saint artifact. At this moment, a gentle voice came from not far away. The voice was very pleasant to the ears. The woman called Ruru looked over. Her limpid eyes shone as she stared at Jianqin very calmly. She said, the reason why there's such a huge difference in price between medium-quality saint artifacts and high-quality saint artifacts is because high-quality saint artifacts are extremely difficult to forge. At the same time, the materials required to forge them are extremely difficult to find. There are quite a few artificers who can forge medium-quality saint artifacts in the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Basically, every provincial city has an artificer like that. As a matter of fact, some provincial cities even have a few of them. However, master craftsmen who can forge high-quality saint artifacts are as rare as phoenix feathers and qilin horns. Across the surrounding kingdoms, there are only 4 or 5 of them. But in our divine kingdom of Pingtian, there's not a single artifact forging master like that. All the high-quality saint artifacts are basically brought back from other divine kingdoms. That's why high-quality saint artifacts are so valuable. The woman called Ruru glanced at Jianqin deeply when she reached there. She continued, as for the supreme quality saint artifact that the young master wanted before, it's even more valuable. Not only is it several hundred or even 1,000 times more valuable than the startling rainbow sword, but it's also priceless. Thank you for telling me. Jianqin clasped his fist at Ruru. Ruru's explanation had allowed him to gain some understanding of high-quality saint artifacts and supreme-quality saint artifacts. There's no need to be so polite, young master. It's just that you've offended the people of the Yang family earlier. With how the Yang family normally acts, they definitely won't just let this matter go. It's best if you leave sooner. Even if you possess some background and no longer fear the Yang family. Yangtai probably won't let go of the lady who led the way so easily, Ruru said to Jianqin very indifferently. Jianqin frowned slightly when he heard that. The female attendant who had received Jianqin had indeed paled in fright at that moment. She was completely devoid of blood, and even her body trembled gently. She was filled with fear. I'll buy the startling rainbow sword, Jianqin suddenly said to the female attendant. With a wave of his hand, 6 blocks of high-quality divine crystals directly fell to the ground with a heavy thud. The female attendant immediately became stunned. She stared at the 6 blocks of high-quality divine crystals blankly as her breathing became rather ragged. At the same time, she was greatly surprised. She had never thought that Jianqin would actually possess the ability to purchase a high-quality saint artifact. Moreover, he did not even bat an eyelid when he took out 6 million high-quality divine crystals. Even the woman, called Ruru, was slightly surprised. She had never thought that Jianqin would possess so many divine crystals. Even to some overgods, 6 cubic meters of divine crystals was an extremely tremendous amount. Young master, please wait a moment. I'll call the manager over right now. The female attendant hurried off. Her face was filled with excitement and joy. She had successfully sold a high-quality saint artifact. let alone the fact that just the commission was an astronomical figure to her. She could also be promoted through this. Once she possessed a certain level of status in the true Sword Pavilion, she would no longer have to fear Yang Tai's revenge. Very soon, the manager of the True Sword Pavilion hurried over and successfully completed the transaction with Jianqin. Before long, Jianqin left the True Sword Pavilion with the startling rainbow sword that he had just spent 6 million high-quality divine crystals on. He found a large, luxurious inn and directly booked the most luxurious suite there. After hanging a sign that read "Seclusion" outside, he immediately began to refine the startling rainbow sword. With this high-quality saint artifact, my strength will increase by quite a lot. It's just a pity that I won't be able to find a supreme quality saint artifact, thought Jianqin. He felt rather regretful before activating the defensive formations in the room. As Jianqin refined the startling rainbow sword, Yang Tai hurried to the True Sword Pavilion with a group of people from the Yang family. Not only were there several deities among them, but there was even an elder who was a god as well. The True Sword Pavilion dared not tarry when faced with the aggressive group of people from the Yang family. The manager personally stepped forward and smiled at Yang Tai. "Young Master Yang, unfortunately, you've come too late. The person you're looking for has already left. He's not in our True Sword Pavilion." "Humph, that person has left. I'll naturally search the entire city for him. However, there's a female attendant in your True Sword Pavilion who's with that person." "I need to take her away," Yang Tai said coldly. The manager of the True Sword Pavilion blocked the entrance, so he did not dare to charge in with his people. "Apologies, young Master Yang. I've just sold a high-quality saint artifact and made great contributions to the True Sword Pavilion. I've already been promoted to a vice attendant of the True Sword Pavilion, so you can't take her with you," the manager said politely. "What? Sold a high-quality saint artifact? Did that person really buy a high-quality saint artifact?" Yang Tai was surprised, but he soon became overjoyed. "Young Master, since that person has the ability to buy a high-quality saint artifact, his background definitely isn't weak. It might even be a clan with an overgod. You can't be reckless. You can't offend a powerful clan over something as trivial as this," the elder from a Yang family said from beside Yang Tai. Chapter 1832. This person paid such a great price to buy a high-quality saint artifact, so he must treat it like a treasure. "Taking the saint artifact from him probably won't be easy," the elder of the god clan said. He frowned slightly. He felt that Yang Tai's thoughts were very inappropriate. Before Yang Tai could continue, the elder continued. "Moreover, since this person possesses such great wealth, he definitely isn't someone to be trifled with. Moreover, since he dares to come here for this high-grade saint artifact, he might be strong enough to protect it. He won't let this high-grade saint artifact that he just spent so much money on be snatched away by others. As a result, I can conclude that this person is probably very powerful. If not, he must come from a clan with an overgod. I just don't know which clan he is from. Young Master, high-quality god artifacts are precious, but offending a clan with an overgod for them is not a wise decision." The elder of the Yang family analyzed sternly. He did his best to stop Yang Tai from making trouble for Jianqin. This was because he knew that if a person dared to purchase a high-grade saint artifact in public without concealing their intentions, they would either be mentally ill or extremely confident in themselves. However, the elder of the Yang family naturally ignored the former, as just 6 blocks of high-grade divine crystal was not something a regular person could take out. However, Yang Tai did not seem to listen to the elder's advice at all. He insisted on doing what he wanted and said proudly, "I don't know whether that person comes from a clan with an overgod or not, and you're only guessing. What if your guess is wrong? In fact, not only does that kid not have any background, but his strength is also not very strong. He was just lucky and found a predecessor's cave somewhere. Then he got a windfall and obtained some treasures, that's all. Moreover, that kid severed the arm of a guard of my Yang family in such a brazen manner in the true sword pavilion. Humph. My Yang family is a large clan in the divine kingdom of Pingtian after all. We have to redeem ourselves. So what if he comes from a clan with an over-god? Don't forget that we're the Yang family. At the mention of the Yang family, there was an undisguised pride between Yang Tai's brows. The Yang family did indeed possess an extremely great status in the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Due to the existence of the ancestor of the Yang family, all the over-god clans in the divine kingdom felt some fear towards the Yang family. This was because the ancestor of the Yang family was a late over-god. His status in the divine kingdom of Pingtian was only below the divine king and the grand imperial protector. Immediately, Yang Tai ordered his subordinates to search for Jianqin. With the Yang family's influence in the royal capital, finding a person was naturally not difficult at all. They found the inn that Jianqin had temporarily rested in very soon. Perching Phoenix in the heaven room on the top floor, the entire room was enveloped by a layer of formation. In his room, Jianqin sat on his bed as he focused on refining the startling rainbow sword. He had never thought that the young master of the Yang family, Yang Tai, would actually set his eyes on the high-quality saint artifact he had just bought. However, even if he knew, he was not afraid at all. The ancestor of the Yang family, Yang Kai, was indeed very powerful. He had already become a late over-god. However, he had also become a late over-god. The only thing he lacked was his cultivation. As a result, he no longer feared Yang Kai at all. At this moment, Yang Tai had already surrounded the inn with over 100 experts of the Yang family. Not only were there many deities among them, but Yang Tai had even invited a few gods from the clan. Although young Master Yang Tai could not directly order these celestial elders around, as he was the young Master Yang Tai, his status still gave him some face. Moreover, this matter was related to an expensive high-quality saint artifact. If he really could obtain a high-quality saint artifact and hand it to the ancestor, it would definitely be a great merit. As for trouble, just how many people were bold enough to provoke the Yang family with their current status? The person who bought the high-quality saint artifact severed the arms of a few guards of our Yang family. He was the one who started this, so we basically have a good reason to act, so it's only reasonable for us to confiscate his saint artifact. An elder of the Yang family who had hurried over later said seriously. Even though I haven't personally seen the over-gods in the divine kingdoms nearby, I've heard a little about them, so I have some understanding of them. I only know very little about the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan in the Dong and province due to the lack of time. However, none of the over-gods I know matches the person who bought the saint artifact, so I'm certain that he's not an over-god. Even if he's a god, he's probably not a god from our divine kingdom of Pingtian. That's because I basically possess information on all the gods in the divine kingdom of Pingtian, said a middle-aged man. He wore white clothes. He was scholarly and seemed rather scholarly. Yang Tai immediately became overjoyed when he heard the elders say that. He said, "Elders, let's go. We'll go in and find that person right now." The elders of the Yang family all nodded with a smile. They directly entered the inn with Yang Tai. Only the elder who had tried to stop Yang Tai in the true sword pavilion felt that something was off. However, there was nothing he could do now. He could only sigh secretly and enter the inn with everyone else helplessly. As one of the most luxurious inns in the royal capital, they naturally possessed a rather great background. However, when the manager saw that the people who had come were elders of the Yang family, he could only turn a blind eye. He did not dare to say anything more. Even though the inn was a business of an over-god clan in the royal capital, there was no reason for them to offend the Yang family. In particular, there were very few people in the divine kingdom of Pingtian who dared to provoke the Yang family, especially over trivial matters. It's here. That person lives in this room. Yang Tai arrived outside Jianqin's room with the elders. He was rather excited, and without any hesitation, he immediately activated the formation. Jianchen sat in the room with his eyes closed. The startling rainbow sword shone with resplendent light as it hovered before him. It gave off the sharp sword chi of a high-quality saint artifact, permeating the entire room. However, at this moment, the resplendent light that enveloped the startling rainbow sword the entire time suddenly vanished, revealing the original appearance of the sword. It was also at this moment that Jianchen slowly opened his eyes. He stared at the startling rainbow sword before him calmly. After studying it carefully, he could not help but become slightly happy. He murmured, "Startling rainbow sword, from now on, I'll leave it to you to accompany me." As he said that, Jianchen's right hand came in contact with the startling rainbow sword. The moment they came in contact, the sword suddenly vanished, fusing with Jianchen's body silently. Suddenly, the defensive formation outside the room pulsed slightly. Jianchen's eyes narrowed as soon as he put the sword away. He looked outside, and his calm gaze gradually sharpened. Chapter 1833. The array outside the heaven room could not only serve as a defense, but it could also withstand the attacks of celestial gods. At the same time, it could also block vision and divine sense. However, the vision and senses of the soul were only effective against people outside. Jianchen was not restricted in the room, so he could clearly see what was going on outside through the formation. "Looks like the young master of the Yang family has already resented me for cutting off the arms of the guards of the Yang family in the True Sword Pavilion. He's actually brought 4 gods with him this time. Even in clans with overgods, gods possess extraordinary statuses. They're usually elders, where they're only second to one person. They're respected greatly. Yang Tai only lost some face in the True Sword Pavilion. Yet 4 gods have immediately come. They don't seem to have good intentions. They're probably here to redeem themselves. Are all the people of the Yang family so pedantic, mobilizing so many people for a mere wastrel?" Jianchen thought. He had already seen the ancestor of the Yang family, Yang Kai, in the divine king's dwelling. He was a very powerful overgod, having reached late overgod. He was one of the most powerful people among the several dozen overgods who had entered the divine king's dwelling. Although he was not on good terms with the ancestor of the Yang family, Yang Kai, he did not have any grievances with him either. As a result, he was not particularly willing to fall out with Yang Kai over some trivial matters. The Yang family was one of the most powerful clans in the divine kingdom of Pingtian after all. They resided in the same divine kingdom as the Tianyuan family he had founded. For the sake of his clan, he naturally did not want to offend the clans with overgods in the divine kingdom of Pingtian for no reason, which would lead to trouble for the Tianyuan family. After all, it was impossible for him to remain in the Tianyuan family forever. He would have to leave sooner or later. Of course, if the other party took the initiative to provoke him again and again, it would be a different story. Although Jianchen didn't want to cause trouble for the Tianyuan family, he wasn't a person who was afraid of trouble. When trouble came, he would meet it head-on. With a wave of his hand, Jianchen opened the defensive formation of the guest room. As soon as the formation was removed, the people of the Yang family who were waiting outside immediately learned of it. All of them beamed and appeared extremely excited. As far as they were concerned, a high-grade saint artifact was already within their reach. Yang Tai and the few celestial elders of the Yang family immediately entered the guest room, while the deities stood guard outside silently. As soon as one of the 4 elders entered the room, he closed the door behind him. He felt that it was not safe enough, so he immediately set up a barrier that enveloped the entire room. Only after doing all that did the elders nod in satisfaction. They felt like the operation this time was completely foolproof. The startling rainbow sword was already theirs. Jianchen sat on the bed calmly the entire time as he watched on indifferently. However, it was possible to tell from his rather cold gaze that he was not as calm as he seemed on the surface. The Yang family was so cautious and had ill intentions. They must have come for the startling rainbow sword. Fortunately, he was the one sitting here today, so he did not fear the Yang family at all. If it were someone else who was not an overgod, the outcome would be obvious. "Brat, you never thought we'd meet again so soon, right?" Yang Tai glared at Jianchen as he sneered. Jianchen directly ignored Yang Tai. He glanced past the gods of the Yang family and asked indifferently, "You must have come for the high-grade saint artifact, right?" Yang Tai immediately became furious when he saw how Jianchen did not even glance at him. Before the elders could say anything, he directly called out coldly, "Brat, this is what you get for offending me. That's right. We've come for the startling rainbow sword this time. And it's not just the startling rainbow sword. I'll be taking you with me as well." Jianchen immediately frowned. The elders of the Yang family studied Jianchen silently, and they gradually became stern. This was because they discovered that they could not see through Jianchen at all. In their eyes, Jianchen seemed like an ordinary person. He did not give off the presence of an expert at all. There were usually two reasons for this. The first was that the person possessed a profound secret technique that could hide their presence. Even if they were only deities, they could hide their presence from gods or even overgods. The second was that the person's cultivation was far greater than theirs. They only needed to conceal their presence casually, and they would not be able to sense anything. The elders of the Yang family studied Jianchen for a while before coming to the same conclusion in the end. This person is definitely not an overgod. If he were an overgod, he probably would have kicked us out long ago with the pride of overgods. However, he's still sitting there without doing anything. He's probably afraid of us. This person must be a god who has used a secret technique to hide his presence. He might even be a deity. Has the Yang family already become so arrogant in the royal capital of the divine kingdom of Pingtian? Has the Yang family already become unstoppable in the royal capital? Jianchen murmured to himself. However, Yang Tai's face did indeed change when he heard that. He could not help but think of an unbearable past, and his face immediately became extremely sunken. Anger surged within him, and he bellowed out, "You're looking to die!" Yang Tai directly raised his hand and slapped towards Jianchen's face. Right now, he was completely unaware of whose face he was slapping at this moment. Even the ancestor of the Yang family, Yang Kai, did not dare to do something like that. This was because once he did that, it would mean a grievance that could not be resolved would appear out of nowhere. It would not end until one of them was dead. Jianchen's eyes turned cold. He grabbed Yang Kai's hand with his left hand casually and stared at him coldly. He said coldly, "You sure are bold. Just that move alone is enough to make me want to kill you. However, I'll spare your life for the sake of your great-grandfather. I can spare you from death, but you still need to be punished." With a flash of light, Yang Kai's entire arm had been chopped off by Jianchen. Immediately, blood spurted out like a fountain. Afterwards, Jianchen's hand landed on Yang Kai gently. With a chilling cry, Yang Kai vomited blood as he directly flew out of the window. A gleam of light flashed through the eyes of the sky celestial elder who had set up the barrier. He immediately tore a hole in the barrier, and Yang Tai's body just happened to fly through the hole. The elders did not try to stop this from happening. They did not have a good impression of Yang Tai. Instead, if Yang Tai was injured, it would only be beneficial to them. It would give them even more reason to attack Yang Tai. As long as they returned the high-quality saint artifact to the clan, they could use Yang Tai's matter as an excuse even if the overgod behind Yang Tai came looking for them. Through Jianchen's actions, they could tell that Jianchen was only a god at most, so they no longer feared him at all. Yang Tai's painful cries rang out clearly from the street below. Blood had already covered the ground. It was very rare for someone to be injured in the royal capital. In just a while, Yang Tai's chilling cries attracted the attention of the people in the surroundings. Very soon, a large group of people had gathered there. All of them pointed at Yang Tai as he writhed on the ground and discussed softly, Isn't that the young master of the Yang family, Yang Kai? How did he end up like this? Who is it? who is bold enough to chop off the arm of the young master of the Yang family. It doesn't matter who lives in Phoenix's Perch. He's in big trouble now, serves him right. Who knows how many innocent girls the young master of the Yang family has harmed. Now that he's ended up like this, he really deserves it. The guards of the royal capital are about to arrive. Chapter 1834. Jianchen sneered when he heard the elder's words. He stared at the old man with a teasing gaze and said indifferently, "May I ask what you mean by cooperation?" The old man was extremely experienced. Naturally, he could see the faint mockery in Jianchen's expression. However, he did not mind at all. He smiled. "This isn't anything difficult for you. I just need you to hand over the high-quality Saint artifact you just bought from the true sword pavilion, the startling rainbow sword. That's the only way to make up for your loss of the young master's arm. Of course, I also know that you've paid quite a price to purchase this Saint artifact, little brother. However, little brother, you have to be clear about who you've provoked this time. That's the young master of the Yang family. As a peak clan in the divine kingdom of Pingtian, the Yang family naturally places great importance on their reputation. As a matter of fact, they won't tolerate any provocation at all. What you've done today has already exceeded the bounds of provocation. If this matter is not dealt with properly, you will become the enemy of the Yang family. Not only will it be difficult for you to escape from the royal capital, but even the clan behind you will be dragged into it. Let alone in the divine kingdom of Pingtian, no one dares to provoke the Yang family. Even in the surrounding divine kingdoms, the Yang family is renowned." The old man smiled. He was already confident that victory was within his grasp when he mentioned that he had become an enemy of the Yang family. He believed that he had already defeated Jianchen. This was because the Yang family did indeed have such prestige, and at the same time, they also had such strength. All of this was because the Yang family had a late over-god ancestor Yang Kai. I never thought that as a glorious clan in the divine kingdom of Pingtian, the Yang family would actually do something like this. However, do you think I'll hand over the startling rainbow sword that I spent 6 million high-grade divine crystals on? Jianchen asked. The old man smiled confidently. His voice gradually became forceful as well. He said, "Brother, you've offended the Yang family, so you must hand over the startling rainbow sword. Otherwise, the Yang family won't let you leave the royal capital." Elder Ma is correct. "Sir, it's best if you hand over the startling rainbow sword. I can guarantee you that the Yang family won't pursue the matter of severing the young master's arm. Otherwise, we'll just have to trouble you and make you come to the Yang family with us," another elder said. The second elder spoke as well. He was also an old man, and his gaze towards Jianchen was extremely hostile. A high-quality Saint artifact is precious, but what's the point of possessing the eternal kingdom if you can't even keep your life? Brother, you have to consider this carefully. After all, the Yang family isn't so easy to provoke. Even if you don't consider yourself, you have to consider your clan. If you anger the Yang family and directly wipe out your clan, that would be terrible, the middle-aged man said gently. The scholarly middle-aged man also spoke. He had a faint smile on his face as he spoke calmly. However, his calm tone was also filled with a sense of coldness. Only the final elder of the Yang family in the room, the one who had tried to stop Yang Kai when he went to the true sword pavilion, remained silent. His eyes remained fixed on Jianchen the entire time. He felt like the person before him was not as simple as he had imagined him to be. "Wipe out my clan," Jianchen murmured to himself. His face gradually sank, and intense killing intent leaked out from his eyes. If the three elders had threatened Jianchen himself, Jianchen would not have reacted so violently. However, they should have never, ever mentioned wiping out a clan. This was because the Tianyuan family he had founded were either his closest relatives or his best friends. They were all Jianchen's weak spots, as well as a reverse scale that could not be touched. The four elders of the Yang family looked at each other when they sensed the cold, killing intent from Jianqin. They became extremely stern. The killing intent actually made the four of them shiver in fear. Moreover, the four of them could vaguely estimate Jianqin's strength through the killing intent. He was definitely much more powerful than any one of them. At this moment, Jianqin moved. With a slight sway of his body, he turned into a faint blur. He appeared before the scholarly middle-aged man with unbelievable speed, almost like he had teleported. He directly grabbed the middle-aged man by the neck. Only when Jianqin grabbed him by the neck did the middle-aged man see Jianqin appear before him, like he had teleported. His eyes widened as disbelief filled his face. His heart churned. This was because he was unable to resist Jianqin at all, even with his strength as a god. He did not even see Jianqin's movements clearly. All he knew was that Jianqin had grabbed him by the neck in a single moment. Who is this person? Even I didn't sense anything when he attacked. Even a late heavenly god wouldn't be able to do that. Could he be an over-god? How is this possible? How can this person be an over-god? The scholarly middle-aged man was filled with fear. How dare you threaten to destroy my clan? Let alone you, a mere god. Even if your ancestor, Yongkai, was here, I would fight to the death with him. Jianqin glared at the middle-aged man as he stressed every single word. Afterwards, he directly struck the middle-aged man's head with his hand. Clans were Jianqin's reverse scale. They were existences that could not be touched. Even though he had no intentions of becoming enemies with the Yang family, he still needed to kill them since they had said something like that. Bang! With a heavy sound, the middle-aged man's head cracked from Jianqin's strike. He was dead. Chapter 1835. The three other elders all paled as they stared at Jianqin in fear and disbelief. They could not help but stagger a few steps backwards. Jianqin had moved just too quickly. Not only was he fast, but he had also killed an elder so easily and casually. In just a single clash, an elder who was similar in strength to them had died right before them, let alone fight back. He could not even put up a struggle. He was truly as weak as an ant. The three elders of the Yang family were not idiots. It was impossible for Jianqin to be a god if he could kill an expert who was similar in strength to them so quickly. This was because even late gods would not be able to kill off a companion so easily before the three of them. They had plenty of time to save him. Why? You're an overgod. An elder of the Yang family stared at Jianqin in fear as he said with a trembling voice. At this moment, his feelings could only be described as tempestuous waves of shock and terror, and there was also a trace of disbelief mixed within it. Let alone the divine kingdom of Pingtian, they had not even seen all the overgods in the surrounding divine kingdoms. However, they had heard some rumors about them, so they naturally possessed some information about them. Although they could not guarantee that they would be able to recognize them with a single glance, they could determine their identities through some minute clues and various characteristics. However, they failed to find anything on Jianqin that was similar to the characteristics of the known overgods. Whether I'm an overgod or a god is no longer important. What's important is that I've already killed an elder of your Yang family. Moreover, I clearly heard you say that the Yang family is a clan that cares a lot about their reputation. Haven't I already slapped your Yang family's face? How does your Yang family plan on reclaiming your reputation? Do you want me to hand over the startling rainbow sword I just bought? Or do you plan on keeping me here forever? Jianqin sneered. He no longer had any good impression of the Yang family after this matter. Although the elders had acted on their own and had nothing to do with Yongkai, they could tell what kind of person Yongkai was through the actions of some of the clansmen. If Yongkai was an upright and righteous person, the clansmen of the clan would not have done something like this under his influence. No. Senior, this is a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. We didn't know that Senior had come to the royal capital of our divine kingdom of Pingtian. If we have offended you, please be magnanimous and forgive us for our impudence. We were blind and failed to recognize Senior in time. Yes, yes, it's all a misunderstanding. Senior, please be magnanimous and forgive us juniors for our sins. Elder Lu's death was entirely his own fault. He can't blame anyone else. Our Yang family will definitely not stand up for someone like him. The 3 remaining elders of the Yang family all shivered inside when they saw Jianshin's cold, murderous gaze. They immediately lowered themselves and begged for forgiveness from Jianshin. They all seemed extremely sincere, without any pretense at all. They could not decide whether the Yang family would make trouble for an overgod because of the death of an elder, nor could they interfere. However, they understood that if they did not do this today, they would probably end up like Elder Lu in the end. The matter at hand was to preserve their lives. Jianshin glared at the 3 elders of the Yang family. He said nothing. Instead, he sank into his thoughts. As Jianshin sank into his thoughts, the 3 elders of the Yang family were as frightened as cicadas in winter. They did not even dare to breathe too loudly. All of them stood there obediently, not daring to act recklessly. This was because they understood that all their tricks were useless before an overgod. They would not be able to hide from the senses of an overgod. Right now, they could only hope that the overgod before them feared the ancestor of the Yang family and would not completely fall out with the Yang family. A while later, Jianshin suddenly kicked Elder Ma and said coldly, "I'll spare your lives today. Piss off with your companion's corpse." "Thank you for your kindness, Senior." As if they had just been pardoned, the 3 elders caught Elder Ma's corpse and flew out of the window as if they had just survived a disaster. They all moved as fast as they could, and with a flash, the 3 of them had vanished. Very few people on the streets below were able to catch sight of them. At the same time, the people of the Yang family who had surrounded the inn received a message from the 3 elders when they left. They all ended their encirclement with some confusion and surprise. They left with the young master of the Yang family, Yang Tai, who had lost an arm. The people of the Yang family had all left. They've left? The people of the Yang family have left just like that? It can't have ended like this, right? Impossible. The Yang family is a peak clan in the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Anyone who offends the Yang family will suffer a horrible fate. I think I saw someone fly out of the window earlier, but it was just too fast, so I didn't see it clearly. Has the person who injured the young master of the Yang family been taken away by the elders of the Yang family? That's extremely likely. The person who offends the Yang family probably will suffer a horrible fate. Sigh, there's going to be another vengeful soul in the world from now on. The cultivators who had gathered on the streets to watch the show all sighed emotionally. Many of them were filled with sympathy, as well as anger and deep helplessness. At this moment, there was actually no one who took pleasure in the Yang family's misfortune, which was extremely rare. Clearly, although the Yang family was a peak clan in the divine kingdom of Pingtian, they had not won the respect of many people. The guards are here. Everyone move aside. At this moment, a voice rang out. At this moment, a loud shout rang out. Immediately, the expressions of all the warriors who had gathered here changed slightly. Without the slightest hesitation, they immediately and consciously moved to the sides to make way for the voice. A group of armored soldiers on magical beasts galloped over from the distance. Every single one of them had cold faces and sharp gazes. Who's causing trouble here? The captain of the guards at the front glared at the surroundings as he called out sternly, "Sir, it's the young master of the Yang family. He's brought a few elders of the Yang family to capture someone." A young man in the crowd reported everything he had seen with a charming smile. However, the captain's expression immediately changed when he heard that Yang Tai's arm had been chopped off. He said murderously, "What did you say?" "Yang Tai's arm was chopped off." "Who did it? Who's bold enough to commit murder in the royal capital?" The captain was extremely furious because one of Yang Tai's cousins was his wife. "Sir, the people of the Yang family have already retreated. That person has probably been captured by the Yang family," the young man said carefully. "Humph, even if he's been captured, I won't spare him. Let's go. Come with me." Let's see if we can find out that person's identity and background from the traces left behind, the captain said coldly. Guard Zhang said in a cold voice. Then he waved his hand and entered the perching phoenix in with a few of his trusted subordinates. Since the defensive formations in Jianshan's room had not been activated, the captain directly pushed open the door and entered. He was rude and forceful. However, when the guard leader had just entered the guest room and was preparing to search for clues left behind at the scene, his entire body was suddenly startled. However, a glint immediately flashed across his eyes. A pair of sharp eyes stared intently at a white-clothed man who was standing in front of the window with his back facing him. "Who are you?" The captain called out coldly. Chapter 1836. What? That person was actually you? In other words, you were the one who severed Yang Tai's arm as well. The captain stared at Jianshan in surprise. Disbelief filled his eyes as he felt extremely surprised. Wasn't the person who had offended the Yang family and severed the young master's arm taken away by an elder of the Yang family? How was it possible for him to remain here? Moreover, even if the person who had severed Yang Tai's arm hadn't been taken away by the god of the Yang family, where had the elder gone? Had he left behind the person who had offended the Yang family and returned by himself? Ignoring how unbelievable this outcome was, just the Yang family's strength and dignity made it impossible for them to do something so embarrassing. This was because if this matter made it out, the Yang family's status in the divine kingdom of Pingtian and the surrounding divine kingdoms would plummet. As the captain of the royal guards, you should enforce the law impartially. Since you've come here, you should at least ask about the cause and effect of the matter first, and not place the crux of the matter on Yang Tai's arm. Could it be that as the captain of the royal guards, you have some sort of relationship with the Yang family? Do you want to bend the law for personal gain? Do you want to use your status to work for the Yang family? Jianshan said calmly. However, he looked into the distance through the window. That was where the royal palace of the divine kingdom of Pingtian was located. Just a moment ago, he vaguely felt a very obscure divine sense sweep over here. Although the senses of the soul had purposefully concealed themselves, Jianshan still sensed it. However, his senses were extremely hazy and blurry. Clearly, he was unable to clearly sense the senses of the soul with his current strength. However, even though he had vaguely sensed the presence of the soul, he still felt a tremendous pressure from it. Even with his current strength, he was still unable to withstand it. Even with his current strength, he could not help but shiver inside. The Divine King, Jianshan thought. The Divine King of the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian was already paying attention to this. There are 2 Divine King experts in the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. I wonder who this senses of the soul belongs to. Is it the Divine King? Or is it the Grand Imperial Protector? Jianshan wondered. The Divine King of the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian has already reached the Divine King realm for many years. It said that before the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian was founded, the Divine King was already a Divine King. He personally led his subordinates to establish the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. It had already been several 100,000 years since the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian was founded. The Divine King's strength must have improved by quite a lot compared to several 100,000 years ago. On the other hand, the Grand Imperial Protector has only reached the Divine King realm recently. It's said that the Grand Imperial Protector only reached the Divine King realm over 100,000 years ago. The Divine King must be much more powerful than the Grand Imperial Protector. If it was the senses of the Divine King's soul, I might not have been able to sense it. Looks like the senses of the soul before should have belonged to the Grand Imperial Protector. Jianshan stood before the window with his back towards the captain. He stared in the direction of the Imperial Palace deeply as he sank into his thoughts. He didn't notice at all that after he said those words, the guard captain's face became extremely unsightly. It was so gloomy that it almost darkened, and his eyes were filled with cold, killing intent. The rules of the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian were especially strict. As the captain of the guards, he was loyal to the divine king, but he had still secretly done many things for the Yang family. As a result, he hated it when people said that he had bent the law for his own benefit. Clearly, Jianshin's words had completely infuriated the captain. I will naturally investigate the cause and effect of this matter. However, the matter of you severing Yang Tai's arm shouldn't be fake, right? Humph. How dare you commit such a crime in the royal capital? Men, capture this person, the captain called out coldly. Yes, captain. Immediately, a few guards charged into the room. They wanted to capture Jianshin. At this moment, a series of deafening gallops rang out. It actually caused the ground to tremble gently. What's happening? The sudden disturbance caused the captain and the guards to look at each other. The guards who wanted to capture Jianshin stopped as well. They were surprised and doubtful. This was because the disturbance was just too great. It was like an army was galloping. The entire ground seemed to shake from the deafening gallops. Leave 2 people to keep an eye on him. Everyone else, come with me and see what's happening, the captain said coldly. The captain of the guards said coldly. He no longer cared about Jianshin and immediately left in a hurry with his trusted subordinates. However, when the captain of the guards came out of the Perching Phoenix Inn and saw the scene in front of him from afar, he was completely stunned. In the distance, a group of elite soldiers clad in armor were rushing over at lightning speed. Their speed was extremely fast as the wind. Looking from afar, their figures had already been elongated into a string of afterimages. The strength of these soldiers was actually all experts who had stepped into the deity realm. Their mounts were tri-flame divine horses that were covered in crimson flames and had a single horn on their heads. Tri-flame divine horses were relatively common, holy beasts in the saints' world. They looked like horses, but they were 3 times the size of horses. They were accompanied by the flames of gods. The reason why they were called tri-flame divine horses was because the flames of these mounts could change 3 times in their lives. When they were born, tri-flame divine horses possessed the strength of sainthood, and their flames would be scarlet. Once they matured, they would possess the strength of deities, and their flames would become blood red. If they were nurtured with a large number of heavenly resources, these divine horses could even reach God in the end. Once they reached God, their flames would become a deep violet. God was the final point of cultivation for tri-flame divine horses. Throughout history, there had never been a tri-flame divine horse that had broken through to the level of overgods. Due to the great strength of these divine horses, they would be loyal to their master once they were tamed. They would never betray their master, and their teamwork would be extremely great. As a result, they were often used as mounts for elite troops. The flames of the tri-flame divine horses under these soldiers had already surpassed the scarlet color. They had become blood red. Clearly, they had all matured and possessed the battle prowess of deities. The Royal Divine Army. Heavens, it's actually the Royal Divine Army. I'm not dreaming. The Royal Divine Army has actually been mobilized. Looking at the direction, the Royal Divine Army seems to be heading towards the inn. Don't tell me that what happened here has drawn over the Royal Divine Army. The conflicts in the royal capital have always been handled by the guards. How can the Royal Divine Army deal with such trivial matters? They stand high above. They're the most powerful and terrifying army in the divine kingdom of Pingtian. They're known as the protectors of the divine kingdom. On the streets and alleys, countless people stopped to watch. Everyone's eyes were filled with fear, but there was also a lot of yearning mixed in. The Royal Divine Army was an army that was akin to gods in the divine kingdom of Pingtian. They were powerful and invincible. There was not a single army that could stand up to them in all the divine kingdoms in the region. Why has the Royal Divine Army come? The captain also watched this in disbelief. The Royal Divine Army was rarely mobilized.